everyone, and welcome to episode number 13 of the Friday Nightmares podcast. I am one half of your hosting team today, Mr. Smoke Show Scott Crawford, coming to you from Swartz Creek, Michigan, in his horror movie basement. And with me, as always, is the Canadian goddess.
Canadian goddess. That's right, Scott. Heather Powell coming to you from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada on this hot day in July. We're recording on July 18th, but Scott may not get this bad boy out for a little bit longer than usual because he has some child minding duties next week.
Yes.
So
sitting 3 pit bulls.
Yep, and 5 cats.
And 5 cats.
It's like his house, only an extra 2 dogs. So
Right.
he may be a little delayed. So we apologize if some of the new movies that we talk about are old news by the time you listen to this, and there's other 2020s out. But we watch a lot of 2020s. I just want to announce that I reached 100 movies prior to Scott doing it, and I'm a winner, and he isn't. And yeah,
I guess that is true, because it only what did it take me, a day or two to get back up to you? And now we're both, I think, at 102 films of 2020 watches, but I am in the lead of first time watches by 5 films now.
Yeah, so. But I beat you at 2020.
That's true.
And I only care about when I win. I don't care about when I lose.
But that's when I care, so that's what's important.
I know, right? What was I gonna say? It was funny last night. I was out at a pool, I guess you could say quasi pool party, hot tub thing, and at like 1 a.m, Scott and I were fighting about movies. He's like, "You're 4 behind me for first time watches," and I was like, "Motherfucker!" I definitely didn't have the time to watch an extra 4 movies between then and now. This is less than almost 12 hours later from when we
you're slacking.
That exchange.
You had to get some sleep.
I know, and it doesn't help that I work full-time, part-time, and am in school.
Oh, excuses.
Right, bettering myself for the future. That's not true. I'm just trying to make more money. That's all.
Hey, that's bettering yourself for the future.
But an update now. Probably by the time people listen to this, Ontario will be fully in phase 3 of reopening, and our cases have continued to stay marginal. And also, just to note, I saw a meme that went out there saying that Ontario, indicating that it's going to be like what's that Japanese movie when they go back?
Royale.
Yeah, it's not Battle Royale in Ontario for schools. There isn't even been a back to school plan yet, so I don't understand where people are coming from to that. Yes, we're planning to have kids back in the classes, but we have way less cases than any state does, and also nothing will be decided till August 4th, which is, I know this because I work in post-secondary, and we're waiting for the primary and secondary schools to decide, because if parents need to stay home, it's going to definitely modify how we do classes in the fall, obviously, right? Because we're going to have people that have to stay home with their kids and stuff like that. So it's interesting times. So yeah,
it's interesting or it's not interesting. It sucks because we were at phase 3 and we are starting to roll back some things because our cases are skyrocketing. Not as bad as people in the South, thankfully. Like, I feel bad for them, but I'm thankful that our state's not there. But we're at, I think we had, one day we had 800 cases, 600 cases.
Shit.
Yeah, it's shot back up again. And our governor is pretty much saying, yep, you're going to be all wearing masks and getting fined $500 if you try to get into these buildings and whatnot.
And for fuck's sakes, people, wear a fucking mask.
Yeah.
They made it mandatory in the city I live in now too, and that's fine. And we don't have nearly what you guys have. Okay,
right.
We don't even have. I think in total we've had 800 active cases since this began in the city I live in. So that's now there's probably less than 50, if that. And you're wearing masks to prevent a second wave, so things don't have to get shut down again.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the purpose of it. This isn't about taking away your rights and freedoms. This is about making sure that things don't get shut down again and our healthcare system doesn't get overused. So, um, and that's fine. I have some masks now that I'm going to carry around and I'll wear when I go into buildings. Absolutely. Like if it's the bylaw and that's what they want us to do, I have no problem doing that. And I really hope other people, because the borders are now closed till August 21st.
Yeah.
And
Sucks.
Scott and I were talking, and it's very unlikely that the only thing I may be out for is Days of the Dead in November.
Yeah.
If that runs, if the borders are open, and if I don't have to quarantine for 14 days if I leave the country, which obviously is fair, but I personally cannot do that. I can't go to a horror convention and then just come back and not go anywhere for 2 weeks. So that is not going to be happening. So we'll see what happens. But yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, things are somewhat easier for us, because I know we originally planned pretty much our 1 year anniversary top end of the year top 20s whatever's list we're going to do. We were planning on doing that in person.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that can still go
Well, that
on.
would be January, so one can hope that come January, things are better.
Yeah, we can only hope.
It'd be nice to make the visit to see Astronomicon and do the list then. That would be nice.
Yeah, that too.
Right? And it'd be nice to go to conventions again. All these things would be nice. So hopefully everyone just wears a mask and social distance and washes their hands, and we can all get back to doing things that we enjoy. Hopefully we're halfway there. But in the meantime, we've watched some pretty good films, I think anyway. Like I've had a good time with the ones we've been watching recently.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part. There's a couple on there that I wasn't the biggest fan of, but I still appreciated. But yeah, I guess we could jump right into that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Smoke show. Lead us off.
All right.
Lead us off with the gun show there.
Oh yeah.
2 tickets to the gun show.
Pew pew. All right. So our first movie we're going to talk about will be The Funhouse from 2020. And I'm still not sure where exactly this one is available to watch. We were lucky enough to have one of our friends have it on his Plex account. But I know a lot of people have seen it. I'm just not sure of where the availability is.
Yeah, is it an English film or was it Aussie?
I think it was English.
Was it? Okay. Well, obviously it was in English, but I meant England.
Yeah, like
just to be clear, in case everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think it was. But yeah, this is pretty much a story about these people that are, I guess you'd call YouTube, Instagram style stars, and they all get
Social
invited.
media stars.
Yeah, there we go. Social media influencers and stars. And they ended up getting invited to this big mansion for this kind of like a reality TV show type deal, almost like the Real World and stuff like that. That was back on MTV back in the day, where you're just recording everything that's going on in the house, or as in Jersey Shore. And
yeah,
then they have a contest that whoever gets the most views and likes during this, will win a prize. But the thing that they don't know is the ones that do poorly every week with the numbers ends up having to do this competition, which ends up not being very good for the person that's losing, let's just say.
It's horror trivia. It's horrorphilia trivia. And the
right.
people that lose get made fun of. That's the movie. And it's all starring people from the podcasting community.
Now that would be fun to watch.
That'd be great. That'd be really funny. Yeah, you know what? It was a solid film. I really enjoyed it. It's not the highest budget film in the world, but it flows pretty quickly. You feel for the characters. The ending I thought I kind of saw coming. I'll be honest.
Yep.
But that's fine. You're not always going to have movies that shock you at the ending. Fun watch. I really enjoyed it. Some great gore.
Yeah, the gore was really intense, and some of the stuff was kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, it was, and you cared. You cared about what happened to the characters, and I think that's important. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Check it out if you can find it. I believe it's for rent on. I thought it was for rent on Prime because Tim Davis watched it, and he was able to rent it.
I looked on Prime recently and I was not able to find it.
So
That's what
maybe
I'm saying.
iTunes?
Yeah, I'll say maybe it's iTunes because that's the
iTunes.
only place I cannot check because my iTunes account is all stupid.
Oh yeah, and did you get yourself locked out one too many times?
Pretty much it's just I didn't ever get myself locked out, but I can't get the password and it's sending my reset password to an old email that I do not have anymore.
Just do a new iTunes account.
That's what I plan on doing eventually.
Yeah, I fucking hate Apple, but that's
me
my
too.
own. But unfortunately sometimes you can only find movies on iTunes, so you gotta go with it. So
Right.
the next movie that I watched was a recommendation, I think, between yourself and Brandon from Orlick from Exploding Heads, or did Brandon tell you about it?
Yeah, Brandon ended up telling me about it, saying that he
Okay.
really loved it, so that made me want to check it out, and I ended up relaying the message to you.
Yeah, and you know what? This was a really good movie. It's well acted. The main female protagonist, fucking exceptionally well done.
Yeah, she was amazing.
And this had two tropes that I hate, typically.
Yep.
But both were done fucking brilliantly. This was a very good film, great character development, not a lot of violence, if that's what you're looking for. I would say.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, did we say the title of it?
Oh, sorry, The Dark Red, 2020. No, we were just gonna do a guessing game. You guess the movie or something happens to you. So the movie isn't he so sweet? Everybody's like, did we say the title? I'd be like, yo, Scott, you didn't say the fucking title. I'm like, you can tell who the nice person is on this podcast. Anyway, The Dark Red, which is available in Prime Canada and United States for free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. Because it has one of my one of the tropes that I'm into for the most part, even though it is starting to get overplayed. And then the other one I'm not a big fan of, but like you said, they did both of them really well. They handled them perfectly.
Yep.
And yeah, the performances all around were good, but yeah, that main character, she just did a fantastic job. But yeah, I will. They say the synopsis is about this woman that's in a psychiatric place, and like it's kind of broken down into a couple chapters, and just kind of tells this story that just unfolds. I'd say it's more like a psychological thriller horror film.
Well, you're trying to find out what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
Is she telling a true story, or is there other factors going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I think that's what really leads out through the film, is you're trying to figure out, is what she's saying reality or is it fiction?
Right.
Right?
And yeah, this is a really good one. I think it may be in my top 20.
Yeah, I think it was pretty high for me too. I really did enjoy it, and I wasn't sure if I would. And definitely, I don't know about you, but I'm learning people's types in movies. I can peg what you will like. I can peg what Brandon will like. I have a good idea what Nato will like. There are certain people that the more I talk to about films, the more I'm like, yep, they'll like this. Nope, no, they won't. And I've been right. 95% of the time I've been right, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of like me with you. I know your type of films.
Yeah, you'll know what I'll respect and what I'll enjoy a lot. Because those are, there's a film that we're going to talk about that I don't think was a bad movie. It just wasn't my jam. That you liked a lot more than I did.
Yeah, that is very true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the next film that we ended up watching was called Only, which is also another 2020 film. And this one was on Netflix.
Yep, Netflix Canada as well.
And wow, this one was, if you are feeling uncomfortable and not wanting to deal with what is going on in the world right now, I don't recommend watching this film. Because it pretty much hits home with what's going on now.
It pretty much predicted the reaction to coronavirus. Yeah. This movie came out in film festivals. You found it in November.
Yeah.
And I can see why they held off putting it on Netflix till now.
Yep, exactly.
There's a fucking reason why. Right? It was too close. The platform played into, having the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
This played into, holy fuck, this basically happened.
Yeah, right.
Obviously on steroids. Because what the outcome of it is much more intense. Everything's amped up. But the general themes, crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't that not crazy? When you watch that movie, were you not like, how the fuck did this get filmed?
Right, like, did they...
And how did they predict?
Yeah. Like, it
Like,
was shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, it's pretty much about a alien-style virus that ends up infecting and killing off women.
Yeah, and I think that's perfect. I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that you learn that within the first very short time.
Yeah.
You read that in a synopsis. Like, if you go on to Netflix and click it, it's going to say that in like the lines. You can't miss reading that. It's like 2 sentences. But it is definitely one of the better acted movies I've seen. Is it real?
Yeah, the performances alone were really good, and then like you're like, there were some scenes that just like hit way too close to home with what's going on here in the U.S. and the way the U.S. has reacted to the virus.
Mm-hmm.
And fuck, that was heavy.
Yeah, even as I was watching it, because I think I watched it first.
Yep, you told me about it.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, like, okay, can Scott... I actually thought before I told you, can Scott handle this right now? I don't want to... I really... And I think that you're a very stable-minded individual that, could manage that. But I would be honest, I wouldn't recommend it to a lot of people right now.
Right. I'd say, maybe wait a couple months if you...
Depending how you're processing this whole thing.
Yeah.
If you are fascinated with human behavior and you're not scared, which I don't think people should be overly scared, but I think people should be cautious. Because I'm more scared for the impact of the economy more than anything else.
Right.
But I think that it's a really good reflection. Like, this film is a pure reflection on society, and I hope more people do watch it when they're ready, because it's a really well done film, well acted, quick moving, and even the filming style, how it goes back and forth between the past and the present, is done very smoothly.
Yes, it really is, and
really, really well done.
And once again, this is just one of those films that Netflix just kind of dropped on their thing without any fanfare or promotion. Yeah. So, thankfully, Heather's the type that likes to scour Netflix for new films, and she comes across these and brings them to my attention that we can bring.
I hope it doesn't get swept under the carpet because of the content.
Right.
That's... I feel like if it came out a year later, people would be all over it. But I feel like right now, I don't know how it's going to be perceived, but it's an excellent movie. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Definitely a high recommend for me.
Absolutely. The next one is, you are going to get 2 very different opinions on this film. It's called The Beach House, and it's available on Shudder. I think it just dropped last week.
Yep.
The week before, something like that. And Scott and I watched it, and it's a very well acted film, so I'm going to give it that. It's simple. They go to a beach house and shit goes down. It's very Lovecraftian, which everyone knows who listens to our show regularly how I feel about Lovecraft to how Scott feels about Lovecraft.
Yes.
I respect the genre. I understand the value of it. It just doesn't hook me. This film, the third act, I really enjoyed. But leading up to it, that first act to me was pointless. There was things that happened that were unnecessary. Did nothing for character development. Very little, to be honest with you. None of that played into what happened in the third act. Like, you could have been dropped into that third act, or the second act, I should say, and been like, all right, it would have made a difference.
Yeah, I will give you that. That is true. Though for something about that first act, I was glued to the screen and just really sucked into the story.
You love the relationship piece. This was a couple that was relationship issues with another couple, and that's your language right now.
Yes, and I'm really into a lot of the really heavy dialogue stuff now, and there was a lot of dialogue. Some of it was definitely pointless, didn't really have anything else to do with the film, but it just was kind of building upon everything else in the story.
I just felt like there was some dialogue that was so fucking unnecessary that was like, I'm a scientist.
Right.
That annoyed me. And then other just dumb things that happened. Just things that didn't matter. And of course, it's Lovecraftian, so you can predict how that will be. But is it worth it on Shudder? Absolutely. If you are a Lovecraftian fan, you will enjoy this. If you really enjoy relationship movies, if you really liked After Midnight, I think you would actually really like this film.
That too, yes. And also, It's very reminiscent of Color Out of Space.
Yes, very much so. I feel like it is, I feel like this is what happens. A movie comes out like Color Out of Space, and I know that there's other movies before that, okay? I'm not trying to say Color Out of Space is the biggest Lovecraftian movie ever, but it came out this year. And then I think other people find out about movies like that being made, and they see that it's successful, and then they drop other movies, or Shudder picks up other movies that have come out that are similar because they see a demand. And that's smart. You see a demand for a certain kind of film, so you pick up that film. I personally did not enjoy this as much and was waiting for it to be done because it didn't fit my personal taste. But I can see why other people would like it.
Yep, and I really, really did enjoy this one. I think it's also in my top 20.
Yeah, I don't think it's anywhere near my top 20.
No, I think you were like saying it was like in your 40s or something.
Yeah, I think it's in my 50s actually.
Yeah.
Out of 100, because it's a quality film, and I will give it that. It's not something I would go rewatch. I didn't, except for that third act, I didn't care.
Yep, I was saying that. Yeah, that third act definitely was balls to the wall, crazy, and like very intense.
Yes, I would agree.
But yeah, the next one, another Shudder exclusive. This one did just drop over. I think this is the one that dropped last week, or no, this one just dropped a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And that is Lake of Death of 2020. And
I think it was a Swedish film, wasn't it?
Norwegian.
Okay.
Yep, Norwegian film about a group of people that go to this cabin by a lake, which would have fit perfectly for our last episode. But ends up, I'm trying to remember, because this is like the problem with this film for me is I watched it just a few days ago, and I'm already forgetting most of it.
Yeah, it was definitely, it's advertised kind of as a ghost story.
And see, I didn't, like, it's advertised as a ghost story, and when I was watching it, I'm going, I'm getting Evil Dead vibes from this. Okay,
yeah,
I meant that it didn't go that route.
I would agree. I even tried to go back and watch it a second time because I wasn't understanding. I feel like Fresh Cuts needs to review this, so I get it.
Right.
Maybe if they want to, because I don't really know if Venom would like it. I don't know how good it is. I don't know, maybe will. It's the characters are great. The setting is nice. It's very summery. Kind of gets you in the mood for cottage season. There's a dog in it, which I really liked. When I start naming the animals, we're getting to a point where I'm just trying to find shit. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just feel like I didn't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe someone else would really enjoy it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's a piece of shit. Because I don't think it's not filmed like a piece of shit. It's not acted like a piece of shit. The script writing isn't a piece of shit. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, the story was just not something that hooked me in. And I'm all about slow burns, but this one felt like it was just too slow for my
It was like a snail burn.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, this one was really slow. Like, at first I was like, okay, I'm into it, and then that second act, I just lost complete interest, and then the third act happened, and I'm going, it was, Like, I rated it higher, but I think that's just because I was, like, impressed with the filmmaking quality of it, and then I was just, like, thinking about it over the couple of days, and I'm going, well, I'm already forgetting most of it, and it's only been, like, 2 days. All right, yep, I gotta change my rating.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's, I don't know, maybe someone else will watch it and they can talk about it and we'll get it. Sometimes you need that.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say it's on Shudder. Check it out. Like, especially if you like foreign films and you want to watch something that's kind of cottagey themed, but I would highly recommend it because I just don't understand it. So,
right. I would say, give it a watch. Check it out for yourself, but just heed our warnings. Like, it just didn't make much sense to us.
And it's slow. Be ready to focus.
Yeah, exactly. And I was losing my focus really fast.
Yeah. But then again, we lose our focus sometimes. So
yeah, it's true. I'm very scatterbrained sometimes.
We all are, right? The next one is Relic, 2020. It's I don't know where this one's available because we watched it on a good friend's Plex, but I think it's a rental.
I think this is rent on Amazon.
Rent on Amazon. It's a pretty good, I would say, ghost story. The overlining theme in there is definitely family relationships and what happens as we age. Similarly to Vivarium.
Yeah.
Not the same movie, but a similar theme. The acting is solid, very good. You like all the characters. Emily Mortimer, not Mortimer. Is it Mortimer?
I think it might be.
Is in it. I believe that's who it is. She was the only one I recognized.
Yeah, 'cause she's in a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. I'm looking it up right now just to make sure. Yeah, Emily Mortimer.
Okay, I was right. And then the older woman was quite good.
Yeah, I will say this story. I think you liked this one more than I did.
Yes, I did.
But and it's not because once again it's just the same thing with the beach house between me and you. Like this
Yep.
one, just a ghost story's really gotta do something special for me to really get into it, especially modern day ghost story. And while I like the theme that was in this film and the performances and acting and everything were really good, and it was really well filmed, I just couldn't get into it. Like it just wasn't for me.
Yeah. I hear you. I really enjoyed it. It was definitely for me. The special effects were really good. I think if you really like family dynamics and understanding the aging process, it's very good. But it's also a slow burn. You really got to pay attention throughout it, and I think this is just going to come down to personal preference.
Yep, that's exactly how I'm feeling with this one.
Would you say it's worth the rental?
Oh, absolutely worth
Yeah.
the rental, especially if you are a fan of supernatural films and
Yeah.
like you were saying, themes of family and stuff like that. Because yeah, it's a really good movie. Just yeah, just didn't grab my attention. Like didn't keep my attention because it's not something I'm a big fan of.
Absolutely.
And the next one, speaking of not being a big fan of, uh, Detention 2020, which is a Chinese horror film. Um, Once again, not sure. I'm thinking this might be another iTunes one. I'm not, but we had this once again on our friend's Plex.
Yep.
Um, but it's about a pretty much a, I guess, haunted school.
Yeah,
type
listen
thing.
to the Fresh Cuts episode and it will make a lot more sense to you.
Okay, because yeah, like you were telling me, I guess it's based off a video game, and as soon as you told me that,
Yeah.
I'm going, yeah, this feels like I'm watching cutscenes from a video game, and
Yeah.
that was the issue. It felt like I was watching cutscenes from a video game, especially uh, the video games, the Asian style video games, because a lot of them, their plots are so freaking convoluted and confused.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I felt with this. I'm going, I don't know what's going on. There's some really cool visuals. The acting is decent. There's some acting felt like video game acting, which is not a good sign, but but I love the creatures that I've seen in this. Like it reminded me of a different version of Silent Hill in a way with the creature designs.
I was going to say that actually. Yeah.
But yeah, this one just I don't know what the hell happened, so I guess I'll have to give that Fresh Cuts episode a listen, and maybe that'll make me appreciate it a little more. But right now, it's sitting at kind of like a 5.5 for me. Like it was there.
Just there kind of thing. Yeah, I get that. I enjoyed it once I listened to Fresh Cuts. Like watching it, I was like, okay, is this a ghost story? Is it not a ghost story? Is it happening? Is it choose your own adventure?
What it seemed like at points.
Like, I don't get this. And I remember thinking, because I've been watching more Asian films, right? And I've been really trying to develop my understanding of international films. And Venom and Mike and Don and Ellie have a great understanding of Asian films. So does Jerry Herring. But the three of them covered it on Fresh Cuts. And I remember seeing it. I thought, you know what? I'll go back and I'll listen to that. And it helped. It helped a lot for me to be like, all right. Okay. So I would say if you are knowledgeable in Asian films and you've seen a lot, this movie is easier to follow. If you haven't, watch it and then listen to Fresh Cuts. And they did this episode about a month ago, and it will really help you understand it. Did it like jump out and I was all of a sudden like, oh man, best movie I've ever seen? No, but I definitely understood more what they were talking about. And you really need to be focused when watching this. Like, there's a lot of plot development. There's a lot of stuff you'll miss. You really have to be tuned in. You can't be doing other things and watching this movie.
Yeah, and that's the problem with me is I was losing interest, so I started like messaging on Facebook Messenger and stuff like that, and it wasn't keeping my
Well, when your smoke show, Crawford,
Hey, I'm
and your
just trying.
inbox is booming with people wanting to talk to you, it's hard.
Well, I'm just laying the groundwork for my date with Brandon Orlick. Okay.
Yeah, you know what? Like, that's going to be magical times on the dating game. I actually sent him 3 questions that I recommended, and one of them was, how many pumpkins is too many pumpkins? And do you like your paranormal movies with more or less ghosts? And I can't remember what the third one was. Because he'll be like, oh yeah, I liked this ghost movie, but it had too much ghosts. I'm like, what the fuck, dude?
the pumpkin placement in this movie is awful.
Kids felt there were too many pumpkins, and it was overwhelming of pumpkins. It's just too funny. I like making fun of him so much. God, it's fun. But he gives it back though. So
yes, he does.
He has his one-liners too that he's pretty good at delivering. But yeah, I think that if you really like Asian films, and I'm using that as just a very very broad brush, or maybe video game movies, I don't know, you'll really enjoy this. If you're like me and you're just trying to expand your knowledge, watch this and then listen to Fresh Cuts. And they're on the Horophilia Network right now. This episode that they did came out about a month ago, and it will help you understand.
Yeah, but I recommend checking it out just because this one it's just not my cup of tea. Just because I was confused, but yeah, like maybe my opinion will change a little bit more when I get some more explanation. But I'd still say if you're into these types of films, give it a watch.
Good advice.
And that's the end of our 2020 horror films. So we'll jump into the few older films we have. And Heather, you got 2 of them right back to back.
Yeah, I do. We were originally going to do a different theme for this episode anyway. Things changed, and we turned gears last minute. So we're going to save the exciting Jaws movies that I watched to another date.
Yes.
Because they were riveting films.
Yes, they were.
It's just about a shark that just believes in himself. And you know what? He won't let logic or SeaWorld or bad Italian movies stop him. That shark is an inspiration, Scott.
It truly is. Truly is.
It must be an American shark. Right? Anyway. I digress. So, Devil, 2010. Have you seen this bad boy?
No. This one you were telling me I should check out.
Yeah, you like it. Yeah, you dig this shit. So a group of people get stuck in an elevator, and shit goes down. And basically stuff starts to happen to them one by one, and this police detective and the security guard and some other people are trying to get them out of the elevator, and there's some folklore into it. It's very religious, and I don't share this a lot, but I am a person that believes in God, and I am religious and stuff, so maybe someone can write an angry iTunes review about that. Shout out to the horror cast.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Anyway, I do think if you enjoy religious overtones, this is a pretty good movie. The kills are decent for what's in it, and it's a quick film. I believe it's only about 90 minutes long, and it goes quick. Like, it doesn't drag out. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It gets to the point. A little bit of psychological thrown in there with a little bit of paranormal, so it has Brendan Orlick written all over it. Not too much ghost, not too much paranormal. A little more psychological. So psychological. Thank you. Here I am trying to make fun of him, sounding like a doofus. Anyway, it's a good movie. I would say watch it. If you skipped over this one from 2010 for whatever reason, it's a great short watch. Doesn't require a lot of brain space, and entertaining.
Yeah, this is one I will check out because I realized that the whole getting stuck in a elevator, it's kind of a scary thing for me, like, because
it's scary for anyone, yeah.
Because I've actually experienced it for about 30 seconds, and I was freaked out because when I was working third shift as a janitor, there was this building that I had like all to myself, like no one else was there, just me cleaning the whole thing. It's 2 stories, and all the equipment was on the basement level, so I had to put everything in the elevator and ride up in the elevator with everything to clean the upstairs. Well, while I was in there with my cart and mop bucket and all that stuff, get about halfway up, and then the power goes out. And it's the weekend. The weekend, no one is coming in this building till Monday. It's 4 a.m, so none of my bosses or anybody else is awake. I can't get signal in the elevator, and I'm sitting there in the dark going, fuck, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And the power came back on, and it finished my elevation. But after that day, I said, fuck this. I am never riding that elevator again. So I would throw all my equipment in there, hit the up button, then walk my ass upstairs and wait for the elevator upstairs. I would.
You know what? That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, because that freaked me out, and I said, nope, I'm not chancing getting stuck here over the weekend without any way of contacting people.
It'd be like that Alive movie, only way less, or like not the Alive movie, 72 hours or whatever.
Oh, 127 hours?
Yeah, only like way less exciting. It's just you in a fucking elevator for...
I don't know, maybe it'd be more like Alive as well, because I'd probably start getting hungry and probably instead of eating other bodies, I'd just chew on my arm.
That's right, it should be like another movie we're going to be talking about later.
That's true. Oh, and by the way, we're talking about Cannibal Films. I think I forgot to mention that.
I know, like we never tell people, you know why? They're just trying to keep it to the mystery. We're just trying to keep things fresh and spicy. Who knows what we're going to talk about?
We don't even know what we're going to talk about.
No, we're just going to make it up on the spot. Pretend we research these articles, add links that don't really exist. And then the second one is Girl House. I almost said Grindhouse, which I actually like the Grindhouse movies, by the way. A lot of people do that shit, like that stuff. I thought they were funny. Anyway, Girl House. It's a very interesting slasher concept.
Yes, it really is.
Like, and first of all, it's very sexual. Like, it's a pretty sexual movie.
Yeah, because I mean, it's pretty much like a porn site that you watch women living, like a group of women living in this house together, and they will, perform sexual things for people that are viewing them and stuff like that.
It was, and like, I forget who I was talking to about it, and, it's not a bad way to make money. I think people get really like judgy on shit like this, and I don't see why. Like, if this is something that you got it, flaunt it. Like, I honestly, and I'm sure I have female friends would be so pissed at me for saying that, but like, if this is a consensual thing that you are choosing to do to make an income, it's not like you're going to get an STD.
Right.
Cam girl. Now, I guess if you bring home partners, but that's a risk that you would take anyway. And I don't know, like, I feel like sometimes women might have issues because these are beautiful women and they're jealous, or maybe they feel that's oppression to women, and that's fine. You can feel that way, but I feel like if it's consenting adults doing shit, it's consenting adults. So I thought it was very realistic to why people get into this. Like, the one young lady is in it for school, other people are in it just to make money. Because you can make a lot of money. Like, the girls make mad money. Like, I forget how much they said, but it was in the thousands of dollars. Like, huge.
Yeah, like, it's money that I'm going, damn, I wish I had that.
Scott's like, I wish I was a cam girl.
Well, I mean, I am Smoke Show Crawford, so maybe I can be a cam guy.
You'd be like, baking cakes and shit, and like,
just
petting your beard.
Petting my beard, baking cakes in an apron and nothing else.
That's right. You would probably do that shit too, actually. It would probably happen. But yeah, it's a good slasher, some great fucking kills in it. The final girl's pretty resourceful. Her boyfriend is a sweet dude, actually, too. And yeah, it's a fun movie. It's a great little slasher. Very sexual, though. I wasn't, like, I knew that it was, like, cam girlish, but I wasn't prepared for, like, I'm like, oh, okay, like, it's very sexy times. And that's fine, but just be prepared for a lot of
Yeah, because I wasn't prepared for it when I watched it, because I threw it on at work. And then went,
oh boy!
Oh, I probably should not be watching this here, just in case anybody walks in.
Like, I don't have my hand lotion.
I mean, I'm always prepared. I got hand lotion.
But yeah, it is a very sexualized movie. Definitely not appropriate for work or anything like that. But it's a very entertaining, great slasher. Really, really great.
Yeah, I really wish I would have watched this before we did our top 100. Decade films for Exploding Heads, because this would have definitely been in there.
Oh yeah, I'm like, top 100. We did the top 100.
Yeah, weren't you? Don't you remember? We just did that a couple weeks ago.
Oh my god, I could do fucking top 100 with you. I'd murder you by the time we got to 57. I'd be like unfucking friended. That's what it would be.
Amazing.
Unfriended 3, Michigan.
How I Killed Scott Crawford.
Anyway, sorry. The last one is yours, so why don't you lead it out?
All right, so yeah, the only other older film I watched that's not theme related to any shows that we're going to be doing late now or later, um, is the 1989 slasher Cutting Class, which I'm not sure if it's his first film, but stars Brad Pitt, a very young Brad Pitt.
A bit.
Yeah, and he plays like this high school jock, which he's got that look for,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
it's him and this other guy. This other guy was in a mental asylum for something that happened, and then he gets released, and they're all back in school together. But then these murders start happening, and it's the whole slasher style whodunit, and of course, like lots of red herrings and all that stuff going on. But the kills are really good. I loved all the characters in this. Like this one had a great cast of characters, and each person did a really good job. Like this would probably be in my top 15 slashers. I really
I'll
enjoyed.
have to check it out.
Yeah, I really dug this one a lot. So
Nice.
if you're into 80s slashers, I would definitely recommend this one.
Oh, I'm into 80s slashers.
I know you are. You've been schooling me on some of these.
I'm like, sit back, son.
I'll show you the way.
I'll show you because I listen to the top 50 from Exploding Heads. Like I act like I know the person. I just regurgitate what they say.
I know you.
Like if we did film reviews, that's all we would do. I'd be like, so Final Destination, you can listen to. Like, read off the podcast and I've already reviewed it.
Here's my review of this movie. Check out this podcast.
Yeah, I'd be like,
my review's over.
Right? I'd be like, if you want to listen to more about Scream, you can listen to 22 Shots or Exploding Heads, because what else are we going to add? Really, right?
Exactly.
Like, you and I are just so fucking smart that we could be like, actually, Ghostface, if we look back to the history of it, like, there's nothing we're going to add.
No,
and
not
that's
at
why
all.
we do themes, because we're able to talk like a little bit about everything and bring it all together.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that's the end of the movies that we watched. So I guess we will jump into what we've been listening to.
Yeah, so as I'm continuing my horrorphilia jam time, I wanted to get to a gem. Cut to the chase with Mr. Dan Chase and Miss Lacey Lou. I don't know if Lacey has always been on that show.
No, I don't think she was for like I can't remember who Dan worked with before, but I think Lacey kind of came in a couple years later. Or a year or two later.
Yeah, because she's been on it for a couple years now, because they've been together for a couple years. They're a couple. Spoiler, they're a couple. But you kind of figure out through their show.
Yeah, so once you listen to their show.
Right? And they are really funny. Like, they really play off each other well. And I listened to their Leprechaun review, a couple of them actually, and they were really good. Like, the Leprechaun series, it's definitely one of my guilty pleasures. It is one that I can sit there and I can chill out and watch those movies. So I loved hearing these two talk about them. They also did this awesome Halloween special last year in 2019.
That was a lot of fun.
Fuck, was it good. They put in different Halloween music and they had these skits from well-known podcasters. The two of them just have so many creative juices flowing between the two of them. Yes. Like, they are just two people that came together that just scream creativity. And I think that's awesome. And they're a really fun podcast. So if you want to listen to something that's creative and you want to listen to two people, like a guy and a girl perspective, it's a great podcast to listen to. I strongly recommend it, and you can find it on the Horrorphilia Network.
Yep, I highly recommend it. And yeah, I actually was lucky enough to do a guest spot on the show back, I think it was last summer, when we covered Ready or Not, because Lacey and I had just officialized both of our divorces with our exes. So we called it the Divorce Party episode, and we talked about Ready or Not. And we had
Jamie Sammons and Brian Sammons were on that episode as well.
Yep, that was a fun episode.
And just to plug them, from the ABCs of Hidden Horror and Liking It, I think are the two podcasts that they do still. So
yeah, and then I will talk about one that we kind of already talked about, their sister show, Gruesome Magazine. This is Horror News Radio. Now, this is one of the first podcasts that really got me into horror movie podcasting. And we actually worked with two people that used to be on the show, and that is Thomas Mariani and Adam Thomas from the Double Edge Double Bill podcast.
They really got to change their names. It's still very confusing.
It so is, but I love it.
Anyway, we'll let it slide.
But yep, they both were on it back in the day when I was a big fan of the show and like was listening to it constantly. But it is a podcast that pretty much covers theatrical releases, but due to COVID, they've gotten creative, kind of like Fresh Cuts has, and just been doing some bigger name VOD releases. But the hosts are Doc Rotten, Christopher G. Moore, Dave Dreyer, and Vanessa Thompson. And yep, they will do horror news. They'll cover the movie, and sometimes they'll do some type of like fun little trivia game. I have to bring this up too because one of my favorite people that passed away from the podcasting world, Santos Ellen Jr., also known as the Black Saint. This was the show he was on.
Oh, much love, Santo. Much love.
Yeah, he was a great dude, and I got to go back in history a little bit because they did a game back then called Stump the Saint, and they would just try to stump Santos, and if you would pretty much just they'd give you a theme, and you would ask a question on that theme, and he would have to guess the answer, and if he got it wrong, he would get so frustrated that he would be like, "Who's the one that sent this question in? Who is it? Who is it?" And he finally get the name of who it was and goes, "You're banned." And so I got banned at least 3 different times, so obviously the ban never worked.
You're such a nerd. You probably researched the most fucking ridiculous questions ever.
No, not really. But no, it's just funny because after a while, like everybody that was banned kind of like took it as a badge of honor, and we created the band club.
Oh my god, that's super cute. That's awesome.
So yeah, I've had a lot of history with this show, and I still love it and listen to it whenever the newest episodes come out. There's been a rotation of people that have been on the show now, but yep, the 4 of them together do a great job, and I recommend it. They are pretty much available anywhere that most podcasts can be found.
We don't talk about iPods on this show.
Yes, how dare I?
We hate Apple.
But yeah, you can mainly find their show on their horrornewsradio.com and their gruesomemagazine.com. They have it all plugged in there too.
Awesome. Nice.
And yes, so we are going to take a quick little break and promote another one of our shows that's on the Legion Podcast Network. And when we come back, we will be talking the main topic, Cannibal Films, Stereotypes versus the Facts.
Dum, 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 dum.
You're traveling through another dimension. A dimension of not only film and sound, but mind. A journey into an auditory movie review adventure that must be experienced to be believed. There's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the Doomsday Clock. You can extract the Witch versus the Doomsday Clock podcast by either searching for WYCH on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, and on your Android device. Witch versus the Doomsday Clock is a proud member of Legion Podcasts, so prepare yourself. The podcast ice is gonna break!
And welcome back. As Scott alluded to, we're going to be talking about cannibalism, a topic that is usually presented as the lowest form of behavior, and it's usually believed to be a very, I would say, elementary or behavior that's done by people that are very primitive. And we tend to separate people who do that as being wrong, as deviant in society. Typically, we associate them with tribes or with having mental illness. So we're going to just talk a little bit about the types of cannibalism that exist currently in pop culture society. And then we're going to talk about a couple of films in some detail and how cannibalism is portrayed. So the first topic that we're going to look at is traditional cannibalism. So this comes from the paper Encountering Cannibalism, A Cultural History, and it's done by a PhD student, Kelly Watson, from the College of Bowling Green State University back in 2006. So she talked a little bit about the history of cannibalism in North America. So it generally is traced back to indigenous people who first inhabited this land and that were first encountered by Christopher Columbus when he discovered America. So there's a lot of propaganda that was created from a lot of the accounts of what Columbus had shared, saying that cannibalists were very aggressive, that they would eat nonstop of people. There was one statement that he made saying that the Indians take prisoners of war in order to eat them later. The male eats his wife and his children with pleasure. A man confided to me that he had devoured more than 300 of his fellow beings. So there was this belief that these cannibalistic tribes had an unending thirst for blood. And, well, as we can assume, this is coming from one very different perspective, a perspective of that all indigenous people engaged in this behavior and that was just how it was. And of course, we now know that that wasn't necessarily the case. That yes, cannibalism did occur, and in some cases it was for victory over their enemies. They would eat the dead of the enemies to kind of just show a power struggle. Sometimes it was done to respect their dead. So in the case where someone died, they were eaten out of a sign of respect and mourning, as well as survival during environmental conditions. I think we forget about the fact of how harsh environmental conditions can be in both areas of the United States and Canada, and that people will pass away. And if there's no animals around or no other food to eat, you're in a situation where you need to eat something.
Right.
And a lot of that would occur. So this paper basically talked about, yes, cannibalism did occur in indigenous communities, but not always for the reasons we assume. They weren't bloodthirsty, evil people. I guess you could argue that eating someone in victory of war would have been considered evil, but at the same time, depending what you're fighting for, and if that's the culture of what people do to prove defeat and that you believe you're going to get this sacred power from them, I could see that being something that people choose to do. Would I choose to do it? Probably not. But also, I'm not in that culture at that time. So who knows how I would behave if I was a member of this tribe and everyone else is doing it. I probably would engage in it as well. But I think it's important that we don't think of cannibalism as just something that indigenous people do. This is something that has been done by Europeans as well and other people of different descendants. And we're going to call this section survival cannibalism. So in Amy Michael Cook's paper in 2013, A Sea of Misadventures, Shipwreck and Survival in Early America, and this was written out of the University of South Carolina, she talked a lot about how cannibalism was kind of the way of the sea travel. How in many cases, European settlers who were traveling from seas from various countries, so looking mainly at Spain, England, and France, for example, were forced to engage in these behaviors in order to survive. In some cases, they would be at sea for months. Like, I think we, living in the current society that we live in 2020 and how quickly it is to travel across seas, forget that they were traveling in these big ass fucking wooden ships and the conditions were atrocious.
Yeah.
And people were going to die. And sometimes you'd be out at sea for months and months and run out of food. And if you have dead there, you got to do what you got to do to survive. So
Right.
you consume somebody, as well as in a lot of cases, shipwrecks would occur. And depending where you're shipwrecked, you may or may not have access to food, and mutinies would occur, and there would be murders and people getting pretty pissed off. And what do you do with the dead bodies? You already killed someone because you're mad at them, you're hungry, probably going to eat them. I think we forget about the draw for hunger, especially for some of us who are in a situation where, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry, I better just run up to McDonald's and grab something. Or, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry, I better look in my fridge. I think unless you're homeless or you're truly in a situation of food shortage, you cannot understand the pain of hunger and the true madness that it can ensure. The true madness that can be developed from being that hungry. And we need a couple of things for our human body to keep going: sleep, water, and food.
Yeah.
And if those things are denied from us, then obviously we're going to get to the point where we're willing to do whatever we need to do in order to get those things, as we saw on the platform.
Yeah, exactly.
right? Where they were denied food and eventually they ended up eating each other. And we can all look at that and be like, oh, shameful them. But like, we're sitting in a situation where if I'm hungry, I can go grab an apple from my fucking fridge. That's fine. I don't know what I would do if it was 15 days in and I hadn't eaten and there was a dead body. I can't say that I would be willing to eat it to survive.
Yeah,
like
desperate
that.
times call for desperate measures.
Well, and it's a natural instinct. Your body will constantly fight to stay alive. That's what it will try to do. It will constantly try to fight to stay alive. And I think that's something that we need to put into retrospective here, is that there are times where people are put into severe situations and they do what they need to survive, which is why we look at survivalism and cannibalism. And finally, mental illness or physical demand cannibalism. So what I mean by this is in cases where obviously someone may be mentally ill and they choose to engage in that behavior, or they have a vitamin deficiency. And that vitamin deficiency isn't treated and they engage in very deviant behaviors. So the death of the Countess Elizabeth, I'm going to say this, Bathory.
Yep.
So Elizabeth Bathory is a very rich countess that existed in 1560. She was born into a very rich family with very high standing in Transylvania, and which was an independent principality within the Kingdom of Hungary. She was known for killing servant girls and drinking their blood. She eventually would have villagers send their girls to the castle with the pretense of her teaching the girls how to be ladies, how to have good manners, and killing them. In many cases, it was rumored that she would bite their breasts, their hands, their face, cut them with scissors, stick needles into their lips, or burn them with hot irons and coins and keys. And in some cases, they were severely beaten to death, or some were also starved. And she would drink their blood, and the idea was that the blood would keep her youthful. Now, I watched an episode on this on Deadly Women. So Deadly Women is a series that talks about women that have engaged in serial killing.
Yep, good show, actually.
Yeah, I love this show. The acting's a little like wonky in some of the episodes, but it's a very interesting series. And this episode came out, it was actually their pilot. So 2005, season 1, episode 1. And they talked about how she probably had an iron deficiency. And because she had an iron deficiency that was so severe, which women do, I actually have an iron deficiency. And I take an ironly charged multivitamin to help me with that. Because when I was younger, I used to chew my my sweaters, and I would chew on ice, and I would eat my hair all the time. I also have celiac disease, and that did not help, and was a symptom of iron deficiency, was a symptom of celiac disease. So I lived with that for majority of my life, and now that I eat a gluten diet and I take supplements, I'm fine. Obviously, I don't eat people and drink their blood.
Are you sure? I don't know.
You never know, right? Where did my ex-husband go?
That's I've been wondering that.
I'm kind of wondering what happened to him. But it's, at this time, you wouldn't have had that kind of education. No one knew about vitamins in the body and deficiencies. So this woman probably had a very serious iron deficiency, because your iron deficiency can be so serious that you need to have needles. My cousin's wife actually has to go in, I think it's monthly or bi-weekly, to get iron injections.
Oh, wow.
Because she's so iron deficient. So it could be possible that was the case. It also could be possible that she had a mental illness and she was engaging in these horrible crimes as well. But I think it's something important to look at. I think sometimes we just assume, we look at Silence of the Lambs and we're just like, oh yeah, only psychos eat people. Yeah, that's absolutely could be a case as well. But could it also be this vitamin deficiency or iron deficiency? And we'll talk about that when we go through our movies. So those are the three basic areas that cannibalism seems to fall into. Do you want to add anything to that, Scott, or any comments? Or
no, I think that pretty much covers those categories. Like, we'll be talking a lot more about them as we go through these movies for sure.
Absolutely. So we'll We'll start off with our first,
I'm already doing that.
Get off. We'll start off with our first movie, Alive, 1993. So Ugandan?
I think that's how it's pronounced.
I know, we're both trying to pronounce it. It's a European country, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at Scott and I trying to struggle. Anyway, they're a soccer team. that crashes on a mountain and is forced to survive for several weeks or months, because you've seen the movie. It sounds like
it was. I think it was more like months.
Months. So they were there for a couple of months at least. And they have to engage in cannibalism. Now, you actually watched this film. I have not watched it. So do you want to talk a little bit more about the cannibalism stuff in it?
Yeah, because after they pretty much suffer the crash, I think there was like 60 people or something like that on the plane, and about 20 of them end up surviving. They lose a couple of them because the plane like snaps in half like before it like fully stops, and they lose those people. But they end up they use the plane as a place to take refuge from the ice cold winter that is in the mountains. Because I believe it might be in the Andes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe you're right. It is in the Andes, yeah.
And so what they ended up doing is they would pull the bodies out of the plane and then leave them a little bit of ways away in the snow. That way they're not rotting inside and they're not sitting there with the bodies, and they can use the plane as shelter. And they go through their supply, like they actually started rationing their supplies that they had, because obviously they didn't expect this to happen, so they weren't really prepared for such a long survival. And while they're rationing this stuff out, they end up seeing a plane fly by ahead, and they're waving and screaming at it and like using metal objects to like flash light at it to catch their attention. And it looks like the plane had noticed them, because it did this kind of like wing dive. And so people started like celebrating and going, "Yay, we're going to be saved. We'll have someone here in a couple of days." And then they end up eating all of their rations in one single night, thinking they're going to be saved by tomorrow or the next day. And then no one shows up.
Oh my God.
No one shows up. And no one shows up. And they are starting to get more and more like sick and just famished. And then one of them looks at the dead bodies in the cold, in the middle of the snow, and just said, "We got to do this. Like, this is the only way we're going to be able to survive, because who knows when we're going to get rescued." And now this is where I'm not like, I don't know how, because I know this is based off a true story, but I don't know how true it is. Like, if they...
Yeah, there's always creative liberties you take with a film. There's a documentary that came out not that long ago that talks about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we didn't watch that, but anyway, how it's presented in the film is what we're going to talk about anyway, so...
Yeah, and they pretty much go up to one of the dead bodies and cut into it. It's the meat is frozen, or partially frozen, and they eat it raw. They take like little bits of it and just eat it. They don't go just start devouring an entire body in one sitting or anything like that.
Enough to just keep them alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like the big focus of this movie, but it's more like the shock of, oh God, they had to go through this. They had to do this.
I would argue it was a big focus of the marketing campaign, because I remember this movie coming out, and I was 10 at the time, and I remember people being like, "Oh my God, they eat somebody." I remember that clearly about this film.
Okay.
When I think if you ask, and we can put a question in the Facebook group. I think if you ask people, what is Alive 1993 about, they'll be like, they ate somebody.
Yeah, well, I was to say, because that's
right.
Because when I was messaging you when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I don't remember any of this movie, because I watched it when I was young, like shortly after it came out. And I was telling you, I'm like, I don't remember anything from this film except for when they eat the bodies.
Because it's such a social, deviant thing to do.
Yeah.
So if we look back to cannibalism and how originally, it was first documented by the explorers that landed on North America and the indigenous people that were doing it, it was seen as a very savage thing. So when we see it with a bunch of like white people as a soccer team, because I believe they were white.
I think they were more...
were they Spanish? Or
yeah, I think they were more Spanish.
Okay, so when you see people that are Spanish or someone that's considered from a developed nation doing that, it's shocking. Yeah. It's shocking that you think, oh my goodness, they had no choice. These poor people were forced to engage in this. And I wonder what kind of effect that would have had on them once that movie came out and people knew them.
Yeah.
If that changed, and I'm sure the documentary talks about that, if that would have affected how people would have treated them moving forward. And I think that's something to think about, because really that film, that was the marketing campaign. Honestly, like if at 10 years old, that's what I remembered. And I generally think if you ask people about the film, that's what they remember. But that was smart.
Yeah.
Because they could have left that part out.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it wasn't even a big focus of the film. It was just like a couple small scenes, like 3/4 of the way through the movie. And
like the focus of the film was probably it's fucking cold and
survival.
relationship building. Like that was probably survival and relationships.
Yep, because this could have easily fit into our survival horror episode if we wanted to put it there.
Right? It's interesting. So I had some questions here. Would you do this? So put yourself in their situation. Would you?
I think especially in the situation they were in, where there is no real chance of finding other wildlife because of how cold it is. Yeah, I think I would. Like,
yeah.
I absolutely think I would have to if I was at that point where there was no other option.
I 100% agree with you. And I think for anyone to say otherwise is wrong. You know, and I'm going to make that very, very clear statement because I think hunger at that point would get so painful and you would be so hungry and your body's shutting down. And of course, the body's first thing is to try to fight to survive, that you would do what you need to do. Now, of course, I think you'd be upset about it. I don't think anyone would be like, I'm going to eat my friend. This is the best day ever. But survival is survival.
Yeah. And when you're put in a situation like this, like, and you have no other options.
And I'm surprised they didn't make fire. Like, I'm surprised that and I don't mean fire like, oh, they have a barbecue, put some sauce on the people. I mean, like, how did they not freeze to death? Like, that I wonder, too. But
they were actually pretty smart on how they, like, kept themselves warm. Because, like, because it was usually during nighttime when it was the coldest. But they actually got all the luggage that was left on the plane and blocked the entire opening that let out outside. And then when they slept, they were all like pressed up against each other, and they had like security blankets and stuff like this, and they literally just huddled up against each other. They even made stuff out of like the chairs and stuff that were in the plane.
Yeah, I read that in the synopsis so it was very smart what they did. I thought that was interesting. I'm always learning how they didn't get fire going, but it makes sense why they couldn't have. It's so cold up there. Like, you would need to have stuff to light a fire properly.
Though I did wonder, because I swear there was in this movie probably at least 100 cigarettes smoked between everybody, and I'm going, did you guys have like 10 cartons of smokes with you? Because you're like, it's several months in and you guys are still smoking cigarettes. What the hell?
They have like, they're a soccer team, right?
Right.
1972. We're gonna be happening now.
But yeah, that does bring up the question then. Okay, if you had a way to light cigarettes, you could have probably found a way to light like maybe a fire somehow.
Yeah, one would have thought, right? But anyway, I think it's a really interesting depiction of cannibalism, and it was a really smart way to market this movie. The next movie I have on here, and it's in no real consecutive order, it's just how I listed them, is Raw 2016, which is a French film. And it's such a French film. Like, French film their films all the same. I swear to God, you watch a French film and you're like, yep, motherfucking French film, because you can just tell with the filming of how it is. And it's almost like they focus a lot on this kind of like spacey, I don't want to say spacey, like character development, almost like you're a bird's eye view watching people. Like sometimes you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like in French films, it's almost like you're kind of like walking around watching these people, just like they're just living their lives and you're just watching this out. Like it's almost found footage, but not.
Yeah, and
right?
they're good at doing showing very taboo characteristics of people too.
Yes, like they don't hold back. They really just kind of like do whatever it is that they feel like they should do at the time. Like there's no like, oh, maybe we shouldn't put this in there. Like, fuck yeah, put that in there.
Yep, we'll put this in there, and then people will just go. That people that aren't French will just be like, huh.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. Anyway, a young woman studying to be a vet develops a craving for human flesh. So basically, the description of this, and obviously we give spoilers, so we're going to be giving some spoilers. I didn't say that for Alive because I feel like everyone knows about that in Alive.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be there's cannibalism in Alive, as I said.
Like I'll write notes about this anyways, just so everybody knows.
But definitely moving forward with the other movies, if you haven't seen them, we will be giving spoilers. So a young lady's a vegetarian, and she goes to vet school where she's forced to eat a rabbit kidney. And I hate hazing. Like, hazing's talked about in this film, and I fucking hate hazing, but that's a whole other conversation.
And the hazing they do in this is just fucking mean.
It's gross. Like, who wants to eat a rabbit's kidney, which is, you shouldn't be eating the kidneys anyway, or the liver.
Right.
That's where a lot of sorting of shit goes through, but anyway. Not shit, but like bad shit.
Bad stuff,
yeah. So and it goes from there. She basically goes, she gets a craving for meat of all kinds.
Yeah, and you can see like the progression of it too. Like she's like after she ends up getting forced to eat that kidney, she ends up craving eating something and ends up meeting up with her friend, and they go to a gas station where they get shawarma, and she starts eating lamb.
Yes, and she like downs it. Like,
Yeah, like she's
she
just
hasn't
like
ate in days.
yeah, and then it like progresses into like raw meat and raw fish.
Well, yeah, she's eating the raw salmon. So at first she's eating stuff where, like, because you can't eat raw salmon. It is a thing you can do. But she gets a really bad rash after she eats that rabbit's kidney.
Yeah.
And really, like, she has an allergic reaction, and she goes to the doctor, and the doctor has a separate scene with, like, a whole conversation about body image with her, which I think is really interesting. I didn't really get what that had to do with the movie, but I found it really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that had to do with the rest of the film, but like, man, seeing that rash, like I was cringing every time she was scratching herself and just and then the peeling of it when it was god, there's a lot of scenes in this film where I'm going, oh no, no,
What did you think that rash was from?
I think the rash was from her not like since she was pretty much forced to be vegan like her whole entire life. I think introducing meat like that into her system caused just some crazy reaction.
I would agree. Yeah, I think that's totally what it was. It was like the body's reaction to the vitamins and the minerals that come from meat. Because we got to remember, all our food has vitamin or minerals or not. And it's just fucking garbage and chemical process shit you put in your body. But, your body process it and then reacts to it. So yeah, I think that you make a really good point there. I thought that, leading up, I found it a little, I enjoyed the movie, but I did find it a little slow at parts. But I understood why with the character development. I didn't think it was bad or anything like that. I found it a little slow. But there's a big jump. Like, she kind of goes from eating regular meat, but it doesn't seem to satisfy her.
Yeah.
And then she's having her sister wax her vagina.
Oh, God, this scene.
And then it gets stuck. Oh, my God.
Oh, that scene. Oh, my God.
Yeah, that scene, you don't even have a vagina.
No, well, I have pubes, so I know, like, just ripping them out like that.
Yeah, the things women do for beauty.
I guess.
And her sister ends up, trying to cut it off, and then she kicks her, and her sister slices off her finger and passes out. And she starts eating her sister's finger.
Yeah, like she picks it up because she was going to put it in a bag of ice to take her to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then as she picks it up, like you see her all of a sudden just kind of like lose all of her willpower, and she just slides down to the ground and just stares at it for a minute. And then you can see her, she's questioning it the whole entire time as she's getting it closer to her mouth. And then she just takes like this little nibble, and then next thing you know, she's eating it like it's a freaking chicken wing and just peeling more of it off.
It was like being at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, exactly.
And her sister wakes up and is shocked when she sees it, and then she later finds out that her sister has also developed the same thing. So her sister is also a veterinarian, and she went to vet school, and now she's, a vet, I guess, or like her second year of vet school. So she ate the rabbit kidney before. So I guess you assume that this is a family thing, because her sister causes an accident and then eats the people that are dying.
Yeah.
Or dead.
Yeah, and that's just kind of horrific to watch. And then, and it goes all like full blown, crazy with the cannibalism as it goes forward. Like, it seems like, for one, when you get sexually turned on sexually, like, because there's a scene where she's having sex with the guy, and like she's almost wanting to like bite him, like, and just actually rip flesh off of him while she's about to orgasm, but she ends up biting her own arm and sinking her teeth into her own skin. And then there was also the scene with her and her sister, like, when she got drunk and her sister was filming her going, "Here's the body, eat the body," and like just completely making a fool of her in front of all the classmates. She ends up confronting her sister, and they start biting each other while they're fighting.
Absolutely. The scene that stands out to me later, and I think that this is why this movie is good for a second watch, is the hospital scene with the parents.
Yeah.
Because you notice that the sister and her don't really say what happened.
Right.
And the parents don't really dig, I felt.
Yeah, they don't really question it. Like, and it's almost like the mother automatically knew, and the father's kind of like, oh.
No, yeah, I don't think they knew. I think they still thought the girls were vegetarian.
Oh, you think so?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I think at that point, they did not know, like, would you call your parents up and be like, so they were raised to be strict vegetarians. You saw what happened in that opening scene.
Yeah.
So she's at the cafe, a meatball accidentally gets included in the mashed potatoes, and her mom, like, Karen's out.
Yeah, exactly.
On this woman. So I think they had no idea, because obviously eating meat was like a fucking no-no. I think at that stage they did not know, because I think they would have acted.
That actually, yeah, I think you're right, because
Yeah.
they even used the excuse that the dog ate it, and I think that's
that they're going to put the dog down because the dog, an animal that does that, cannot be, once it has a taste of human flesh, it can't stop.
Yep.
There's a lot of shit that is said in that movie that upon a second watch you're like, right.
Yep.
Right.
Makes a lot of sense.
Right. Every scene was there for a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as I may found it long at times, every scene had a purpose. So at the end, where her boyfriend is basically, or friend or whoever he is basically murdered.
Yeah, murdered, and like almost the entire thigh is eaten off.
Which the special effects of that were fucking mint. Like, really, really well done. And she wakes up beside him, and she doesn't know what's happened, and it's her sister did it.
Yep, because she sees the weapon that she was used, which was like a skiing stick, I think, and was used to stab him in the back.
Yep, and then ate his leg. So that is when we flash to the end. So that's basically the climax. The climax is her trying to deny this behavior, thinking she did it, realizing she didn't, cleaning her sister up, going home, and that's when the parents are like, so they know that the sister's done it, and we don't know where the sister is. I'm assuming she's been charged.
Yeah, because you see her in the prison cell.
Yeah.
Or not the prison cell, but like in the visiting spot for prisoners.
Right. So she's taken away, and Dad's having a conversation with the daughter, and that's where you find out it's genetic.
Yep, because he opens up his shirt, and he's like, this is like, well, one thing that I have to do for your mother. And he opens his shirt, and it's just like bite marks and scars all over his body, where you can tell that's the way to keep his wife from like hurting others by just hurting him, basically.
Which is why she was so adamant about the girls not eating meat.
Yeah.
So do you think that this was genetic, a mental illness, a dietary need that wasn't met? What do you think?
I think this is a bit of genetics, with at least in the film.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also got to be the dietary need, because like we were talking earlier, it could have been an iron deficiency.
Yeah, because she's chewing her hair and stuff, and that's a sign of iron deficiency.
Yeah, because I was actually got notes I was going to read about that, because some people with intellectual disabilities and certain psychiatric disorders eat their own hair, a behavior called trichophagia. These groups are thought to be at heightened risk for developing what is also known as Rapunzel syndrome. There are two particular psychiatric disorders the people who eat hair are likely to have: trichotillomania and pica. People with trichotillomania feel compelled to pull out their hair. Pica involves craving and eating non-nutritious, non-food substances such as clay, dirt, paper, soap, cloth, wool, pebbles, and hair. Both trichophagia and pica have been found to occur in people with iron deficiencies. Which is also goes back to the craving of raw meat because of the iron deficiency, the blood. So I kind of found that interesting, because there is a scene in here where she is chewing on her hair when she's getting yelled at by one of the teachers. And
I used to chew on my hair all the time, and I had a craving to eat sponges.
Oh, wow.
When I was a kid. Like, I never did.
Right.
But I used to crave to eat sponges, and obviously once I started taking my vitamins and changing my diet, that went away. I don't chew on my hair anymore, or I even feel the craving to. But obviously I didn't have severe, like, this is it on steroids, right? Like, this is, and probably some mental health issues and other things sprinkled in this as well. That's genetic. But absolutely, this is definitely, looking at this is definitely some kind of genetic deficiency that has been passed from family member to family member, and no one has dealt with it because of the severity of what happens. Because if you went in and you took your kid and you're like, okay, so here's my kid, my other daughter cut off her finger and she ate it, people would be like, mental asylum.
Yep, exactly.
So the first thought, and I understand that, I'm not at all trying to say that's not a natural reaction, but knowing that what we know, it could be a deficiency. So yes, treatment may be necessity to make sure they're not harmed, but putting them on a proper diet plan and looking at their deficiencies and looking at, should this be treated with medicine as well, might be a more proper way to deal with the situation.
Yeah, and the fact that she was vegan, and vegans tend to miss out on a lot of the nutrients provided by protein, so they got to take supplements or find other ways to get those nutrients. So, yeah, if they never actually took the time to get those types of
that's
supplements
important, yeah. Or talk to a nutritionist, right?
yeah, and that you would like not crave it like this movie, but yeah, to an extent, like the eating of the hair, I could see totally being the thing because yeah, she ate so much hair that she had to like pull out a hairball out of her.
Yeah, I've never did that, but I definitely would chew on my hair, chew on my clothes, chew on ice, want to chew on sponges, and I didn't. Yet again, I didn't. I did chew on ice a lot, and that's weird. Now I have ice in my mouth. I'm like, and I like spit it out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I still crush ice and eat it.
You might have an iron issue, right? Like it's actually a thing. If you feel the craving to do it all the time, it's a sign of an iron deficiency.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I won't do it now. It's really interesting. Ever since I kind of got my diet all straight out with my celiac and everything, it's really changed the cravings I used to have. I still crave sugar because I really like sugar, but
Right.
I'm in a lot more control of my cravings.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just like health news with Heather and Scott. But anyway, it's a really good movie on how they handled this situation. And what would you do if your friend was doing this? Like, what would you do if you knew that they were eating raw meat? Like, and that they were engaging in like biting behaviors and stuff, or you saw that video of them trying to bite a dead body.
Well, I would not. I like because they're my friend, and because I am a concerned human being, I would just be looking into what's going on. What like, why are you doing this? Is there a reason? What's going on? Like, can you give me details on what you're feeling? Why you feel you have to do this? Because obviously, like we were saying, this movie blows it out of proportion. So, like, but yeah, I don't think I would freak out. I don't think I would freak out. I would be more concerned.
Yeah, I would try to bring it up to them privately. Like, I get how that guy corners her and shows her the video and is like, "What the fuck did you do last night?" of her trying to bite the dead body.
Yeah.
Good intention, poor execution.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But I would definitely try to address it and probably talk to them about, like, have you gone to see a nutritionist? Have you got your blood done, like blood work done? Like, have you talked to a doctor about how you've been feeling? And like try to focus on the other activities that they're doing leading up to the consumption of biting themselves or biting other people to kind of, because that's the end result of the other things not being met.
Right.
So by trying to get there, and obviously if it's a mental health issue, then that would be a different conversation to have as well. But I think this movie presents it really well, and I think you could dig deeper into it to kind of look at the bigger picture of it.
Oh, definitely. And yeah, this one's a high recommend for me to anybody that has not seen it because I love this movie.
That's a really good film. Really good film. But you know what wasn't a really good film?
I know what it is.
And I know that people like this film. So, okay, I get it. If you enjoyed this film, rock on. I don't think it was the worst film that... no. I did give it a pretty low rating when Scott asked me my thoughts on it. I think that there was good intention behind this film. I just felt the writing was so juvenile and everything else. And the film we're talking about is Green Inferno 2013.
Oh, boy.
My understanding, directed by Eli Roth.
Yep.
Right? So, Justine, a college freshman, becomes interested in a student activism, or social activism group led by Alejandro and his girlfriend, Kara. And
how'd that go again?
Alejandro. Don't call my name. Don't call my name. Anyway, the group plans a trip to the Amazon rainforest, like so fucking like going to the Amazon to stop a petrochemical company from forest clearing and disposing of the tribes that are there. It's I honestly felt like I was back on campus. I work for a university with like people that were so over the top of social justice. I am a social justice person. Don't get me wrong. I don't put myself in social justice warrior area. And these were also social justice warrior kids that were like, we're going to go to Amazon and we're going to show them.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know what the hell we're doing, and we're just gonna put ourselves in this situation.
And it was like the dumbest people going to the Amazon. Like,
yeah. And I think that was purposely done too.
Yes, I think the character selection was good, but oh my god, even the writing and the dialogue between Justine and her girlfriend that doesn't want to go or isn't interested was painful. And she goes to the first meeting and she makes some comment about them doing like I don't know, they were not eating or something, hunger strikes to get their point across, and he's like, you don't understand because you're a freshman, you can leave. Like, it's just so
Oh, it's so
dumb.
grating.
Anyway, so they go to the Amazon, and there's this whole thing where they stage this protest, which with these masks that look like V from Vendetta, and they stop the construction, and they make it sound like they're from the United Nations. Like, it's fine. Like, I can suspend disbelief and watch that and be like, okay, great. And and then they get in the boat to leave, and I'm like, oh man, that was quick. Like, where's cannibalism? So, and then the plane crashes that they get on later, and the tribe sees them. No questions asked. Not that they can speak the same language, but I guess they just assume they're with the demolition people. I assume that's what they assume.
I'm not sure. Like, I'm gonna give Eli Roth the benefit of the doubt and go with that, because if not, it's very dumb why they react this way.
Like, that's my only assumption, is that they're like, oh no, you're them, so we're angry, so we're going to, and I understand there's a language barrier, okay, I get that, but they don't, and they're just like, we're going to eat you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so, and they lock them in a cage, and some of the lines, okay, so they get high. Like, I guess, did they bring the pot?
One of the, I think it was one of the dudes had the weed on him.
And I guess the tribe takes it from him. Or
no,
he gives it to them?
No, like, what ends up happening is, while he's in that cage, there's the dead body of the girl that killed herself. Okay. And when they're like, oh, they're going to eat this dead body, let's stuff it down her throat so when they cook her...
Okay, that's what happens.
Yeah, and then they cook her, and somehow they get clam baked so much that they get...
in the open. All of them. 50 people all got high.
Yeah, and in the open skies. They're not even in a fucking tent or any type of enclosure. Oh my fucking
like,
stupid.
One person's... And they make them act like primates, and that really not offended me. It just annoyed me.
Well, it's
offended. I shouldn't say offended. I wasn't offended. I was just like, this is so fucking dumb. Like, one person's rocking with a duck, and like another person, like, they're rolling on the ground. Like, I get what he was going for, which was comedy, but it just looks stupid. Like, it wasn't even funny. It just looked dumb. And then the line, one person gets eaten, he's like, oh no, they got the munchies. Like, I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Who wrote this fucking screenplay? Like, who wrote
it is like it is so juvenile. And when that scene happened, because I was a huge stoner, and that is one of my issues in most films, is how how stoners are represented as, like, just complete space cadets and just dumb. And the way this felt like just like a fucking college humor type, like, this is what happens when you get the munchies.
Like, it's so stupid. Like, it was just so fucking dumb. Anyway, I couldn't even put my head around
and once again
how stupid it was.
Once again, eating the meat raw. And, like, not even trying to cook it.
Like, and I would assume they would have cooked it.
Yeah.
Like, they had a fire, they had the resources. Like, and then they throw in, like, in the beginning, they're talking about female mutilation. And, I can't remember the name for it, but when they take away a female's, what was it?
Was it circumcision?
Yes, but the female version of it, I think. No, sterilization. They sterilize. Yeah, sterilization. And like talk about, like, we talked about it in a lecture, and then it happens. It's just so, like, or actually it doesn't happen. They break her hymen, the one girl. They use a claw to go up into her vagina and break her hymen, because that's what that indicates. Like, people that think she was circumcised there or sterilized there, she wasn't. No. That's what they were going to do later when they have her on the table.
Yeah.
That's actually what was going to happen, right? I put that together. I'm like, oh, they broke her hymen. Okay, and now they're going to do this because she was a virgin. Right. Okay, I'll buy that. So, it was just like, and then, of course you have Alejandro, who's a complete, like, piece of shit, and doesn't even get his comeuppance in the entire thing. And it was just, I just found that, this is what I'll give it. The special effects were great. The costume design was great. I actually did believe that they were in the Amazon. I actually did believe that they had encountered a Amazonian tribe.
Well, the filming behind the scenes stuff, that was in, I think, the Amazon rainforest, filmed there.
Awesome.
And that was real tribe.
Oh, that was a tribe that they did.
Yeah, I think the only one that was not was the yellow face painted bounty hunter.
Oh, him.
I
With the
think he
big,
was like a hired actor, but like
yeah.
everyone else was actually like tribes people.
And they were very likable. Honestly, I actually really liked the tribe.
Yeah.
I wasn't angry at them throughout the entire thing. I was like, yeah, guys. I thought it was funny. Like, when I'm laughing out loud at scenes that aren't supposed to be funny, because I'm like, this is so fucking dumb. Like,
Yeah, and then you're not laughing at the stuff that he's trying to make funny.
right? And like the dumb lines he came up with. Anyway, I will give them credit for that. I will give the actors credit for working with the script that they had. Especially the main Justine was a great protagonist towards the end. Like, but it was just a really drawn out movie for no reason. And then the ants were on the one.
Oh yeah,
It reminded me of the bees, not the bees.
right?
Like, it was just, and after seeing Cannibal Holocaust, which did the same kind of concept but like a billion times better, and is considered a video nasty. I just learned this year what video nasties are. I didn't actually know what video nasties were.
Oh yeah.
Because I just started watching movies this year. So, like, Cannibal Holocaust to me is a billion time better film than this garbage.
Oh, it is,
like,
and it's a great social commentary.
And as I said, I will give credit where credit is due. Some of the kill scenes are really awesome. They the tribe was amazing. I'm glad they used an actual tribe. That was really cool. I thought, they did a great job. I thought the actors did a pretty good job of interacting with them. It looks like it was probably a challenging movie to make, so props to everybody involved. But the writing was just so juvenile and just so poor that it made it a very unenjoyable movie experience for me. And I love how they threw in like a random fucking jaguar. Like,
yeah.
Or whatever whatever big cat that was at the end. And then like her monologue about the treatment from the tribe, I thought was good. Like that, I enjoyed the route she chose to go. But I just felt like this percentage tribe, individuals from the Amazon, as unable to figure out whether, and maybe they would act this way to a bunch of white people they found and not care. But it almost made them look uneducated and stupid, which I really have a problem with, because just because we couldn't understand them and they couldn't understand us doesn't mean they're stupid.
Right.
And that's my personal take. Maybe other people didn't see that. That's just mine.
No, I agree. And I think it's kind of insulting how the tribe is represented in this, because I have seen like a couple of like documentaries on cannibal tribes, like, and none of them just go, oh, we're just going to capture some random people in the forest and eat them raw. Like, we're just going to just, like, be true-to-life monsters that are represented in movies. No, there is a ritual and a tradition they go through, and it's usually one of the members of the tribe who has passed away that lets them use their body to feed the rest of the tribe.
Which we've talked about, and that's a sign of respect and a sign of admiration of the elders. And, I just feel like this movie tried to be Cannibal Holocaust, like, only in 2013, but just wasn't good enough.
All I'm saying, Green Inferno is the name of where the place happened in Cannibal Holocaust.
So is it? I didn't remember that piece of it.
So Eli Roth was doing exactly that. He was trying to make a pseudo sequel, if you will, in a way. And
he
missed the whole point of that movie.
He totally did. Anyway, I'm going to let you introduce the next one.
All right. So the next one that we will be talking about is We Are What We Are from 2013. Which is a remake of the 2010 Mexican film, which I do find is funny that only 3 years later, and we make an American version of the same film, because that's what we got to do in this country, apparently.
Well, and I like the remake. I haven't seen the original, though.
Yep, the original and the remake are completely are similar stories, but they have character gender role switches. So in the remake, I'll kind of go over the differences here. So like in the remake, it centers around the Parker's family, and after the mother dies of a tragic accident, and the father, Frank, ends up needing his two daughters, Rose and Iris, to perform the annual religious ritual of killing and preparing a human for consumption that the mother used to do. It used to be, apparently this ritual is something that only the female head of the household could do. Like, it wasn't something the males would do.
Yeah, because they're the best cooks, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But in the original Mexican film, it's the father who dies, and the mother tasks the oldest son with doing the ritual. So it's the male that does the ritual in the original film.
Mm.
So they just kind of they kind of just did gender role switching on this, but like this one is more of like I would say more of a what I would think is more of a realistic way that someone would become a cannibal, because they
Yes.
actually, obviously, like, it's still horrific what they do because they're capturing innocent people and locking them up, but then they're actually preparing it like they would like a farmer preparing a pig or a cow for slaughter. They, actually draw the lines on the body of like the choice parts of the body to get the meat from. They actually prep it with vegetables and cook it and like make stews and stuff out of it. Like, it's not just like, oh, we're gonna bite into you and rip you up. I mean, yes, that does happen at the end of the film, but I think that's just kind of like a
Sensationalized.
sensationalized commentary reaction to how the father was acting since he was trying to kill the children.
Yes, yes.
But I thought this was a really well done film with great performances all around. Like, the remake is actually really good and probably right up there, and is right up there with the original for me, because I did watch both this year. Because I thought I thought the original was the one that you watched originally, so that's what I went for. And then I found out you watched the remake, and I'm going, I did not know there was a remake.
That's funny.
And so, and then I watched it for the show, and it's definitely more of a family kind of like the siblings bonding together to how are we going to do this? Do we really want to do this? Because I don't think it's, and like the one thing I had, like, because I put some questions here, but like I asked how the cannibalism was represented in the film compared to other films we have discussed, and yeah, I think besides like the reason why they're eating it, the way they prepare the food is more like realistic to what I would expect.
I would say it's a more elitist version of cannibalism. It reminds me
That-
around the
that's a
time
great
of
way of saying
Silence of the Lambs, where Anthony Hopkins talks about, or Hannibal Lecter talks about. I had his, what was the line? I had
his liver with some fava beans and Chianti.
Yeah,
Nice Chianti.
you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that, and even in the scene in Hannibal where he prepares the food, it's very kind of classy with the consumption.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what this film was going for. It was going for the cannibalism of, we're preparing this food to have, and you don't know you're eating people.
Yeah, exactly. But
right?
The family knows, but like
the
no one else does.
The family knows, but they almost don't really talk about it, and it's a very religious experience. Yet again, they're focusing on religion as their justification. So it's a very much, if someone was to be a cannibal and wanted to hide it and believed in the religious attributes of it, it would be probably how they would engage.
Yes, I completely agree. And one of the other questions I had, because I couldn't really find a good explanation for this, but like you even see it with both the parents. The mother, before she has her accident, starts bleeding from the mouth. Like you see the blood kind of running out of the corner of her mouth. And the father ends up having that because it seems like he's getting weaker the longer they take to actually do this ritual. And when he gets weaker, he starts kind of like bleeding from the mouth, and he's got to like wipe it off and try to hide it. And I'm wondering if that's like some weird representation, like their bodies are so used to eating this meat that when they go too long without it, like the body starts like kind of reacting.
See, I didn't see it as that. I actually saw it as a rejection of human meat or a reflection of a vitamin or physical deficiency.
Okay. See, that's why I wanted to ask the question, because I was not sure on that one, like what exactly was the cause of this.
I thought it was either or, and the more I think about it now, I think it was a reflection of some kind of deficiency, because it almost felt like they were a family that was living like pioneers in modern day age.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
even how the young ladies were dressed and stuff, right? Like, it was almost like they were stuck in the pioneer days, and yet it was like, I'm pretty sure it was in the 90s at least, or at least current times. Like, there were cars and TVs, and I just felt like it was like they were pulled from the past and dropped in to.
Yeah, that makes sense, because even the way they were cooking and like the house itself looked like something just like way old school, and they like part of the story we didn't bring up, but like when they disposed of the bodies, they would hide the bones in this like kind of like cave river stream,
Yeah.
and then this bad storm happens, and you start seeing the bones, like a couple of the bones come loose and go downstream, which one of the doctors whose daughter ended up being missing, which is because of this family, finds this bone and says it's a human bone and brings it to the attention of one of the cops. And that's like how this whole showdown towards the end happens, because the father ends up catching the oldest daughter having sexual relations with the cop, and he kills the cop, and then cooks him to prep him for eating. And apparently that was enough to piss him off, because he ends up like dumping poison into the stews, and he was going to just kill the entire him and his whole family.
Yeah, it wasn't pissing off. It was a religious thing. He felt like his daughter had disowned the family. It was very like, this movie was high in religious undertones.
Okay.
It was very much like, that's why they were eating people. That's why they were doing these things. There was a hierarchy within the family. I think people who really like religious undertone movies like The Witch or something would enjoy this.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
It's a religious undertone film. His mass suicide intended to the family was a religious thing, timed with mental health. Obviously, I'm not saying that religious people do stuff like that. That was just the catalyst he was using as the argument as to why.
Okay, that makes more sense, because like I didn't catch I caught like majority of the religious undertones, but that part I just wasn't.
Well, it was his praying. Oh, like listen to his prayers.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
That's
like if you listen to the prayers, it was like, oh, okay. And just how he felt life should be. And it was a very hierarchical, typical family when it came to the male in their positions, and what he felt his son should do and how his daughter should be. Like, there was some very clear guidelines.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we can talk about I think it's the final film.
Yep, it's the final one for this category.
All right. So the final film is one that I don't think you got to watch, right?
No, I did not get to see it.
All right. Shame, because this movie's amazing. But this film is Ravenous from 1999. And this one's got kind of a couple of the cannibalism categories in it, so I kind of wrote a bit more for the synopsis stuff. But during the Mexican-American War, Second Lieutenant John Boyd, who is fighting in the United States Army, finds his courage fails him in the battle and plays dead as his unit is massacred. His body, along with the other dead, are put in a cart and hauled back to the Mexican headquarters. However, in a moment of bravery, Boyd seizes the chance to capture the Mexican headquarters. His heroism earns him a captain's promotion, but when General Slauson learns of the cowardice through which victory was achieved, he posts Boyd into exile at Fort Spencer, a remote military outpost high in the Sierra Nevada, commanded by the weary but genial Colonel Hart, and staffed by a motley array of misfits: the pious Private Toffler, the drug-addicted Private Cleaves, drunken Major Knox, and the ferocious ferocious Private Reich. In addition to the Native American scouts, George and his sister Martha. But shortly after Boyd joins the garrison, a frostbitten stranger named Calhoun arrives and describes how his wagon train became lost in the mountains, telling of a hellish tale. Colonel Ives had promised the party a shorter route to the Pacific Ocean, but instead had led them on a more circuitous route, resulting in the party getting trapped by snow for 3 months. Racked by starvation, he and his fellow travelers were reduced to cannibalism, and he alleges that Ives has resorted to murder. A rescue party is assembled to get the survivors, but before they leave, they are warned by George of the Wendigo myth. Anyone who consumes the flesh of their enemies takes their strength, but becomes a demon cursed by an insatiable hunger for more human flesh. And as the story goes on, you find out that Calhoun ends up basically setting this up as an ambush. And he's the one that has gone crazy and murdered the others. And he's wanting more flesh, because the more he consumes, the stronger he feels, the more addicted he becomes. So he starts capturing all these other people, and like when they finally get to this location where they find all the dead bodies, and he starts killing them, and then Lieutenant Boyd, or I guess Captain Boyd at this point, ends up somehow getting away from him, and then falls into this ravine where his leg is broken, and one of the bodies of one of his soldiers had fallen down this ravine with him. And he's trapped down there for several weeks, no food or anything, so he ends up resorting to cannibalism as well. And as he's eating the body, he's, feeling the power and energy that it's giving him from this Wendigo myth. And then when he gets back, he's keeping quiet about what he did and all this stuff. And then Calhoun ends up showing up dressed as another commander. And so it ends up going from there, just like Lieutenant or Captain Boyd trying to prove that Calhoun was actually the one that did all this and killed them. And it dives even more into the Wendigo myth, which I will talk about a little bit because this myth is very interesting and I've heard about it before, so I wanted to look up some information. So I found this from legendsofamerica.com, and it's about the Wendigo. The creature has long been known among the Algonquin, Ojibwe, Eastern Cree, Saulteaux, West Main, Swampy Cree, Naskapi, and Innu peoples, who have described them as giants, many times larger than human beings. Although descriptions can vary somewhat, common to all these cultures is the view that the Wendigo is a malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being that is strongly associated with winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation. The Algonquin legend describes the creature as a giant with a heart of ice. Sometimes it is thought to be entirely made of ice. Its body is skeletal and deformed with missing lips and toes. The Ojibwa describe it as a large creature as tall as a tree with a lipless mouth and jagged teeth. Its breath has a strange hiss, its footprints full of blood, and it ate any man, woman, or child who ventured into its territory. And those were the lucky ones. Sometimes the Wendigo chose to possess a person instead, and this is where it kind of ties into Ravenous. And then the luckless individual becomes a Wendigo himself, hunting down those he had once loved and feasting upon their flesh. According to the legends, a Wendigo is created whenever a human resorts to cannibalism to survive. In the past, this occurred more often when Indians and settlers found themselves stranded in the bitter snows and ice of the North Woods. Sometimes stranded for days, any survivors might have felt compelled to cannibalize the dead in order to survive. Other versions of the legend cite that humans who displayed extreme greed, gluttony, and excess might also be possessed by the Wendigo. Thus, the myth served as a method of encouraging cooperation and moderation. And this myth, I was looking into like the history of it more. Apparently it is a kind of funny Michigan and Canadian myth.
Yeah, it's very common in Canada.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty neat that it's kind of like from the areas we are from, that's a myth that we have.
Well, it's funny. I wonder if it's something in Minnesota as well. I think it has to do a lot
Minnesota
with
also.
cold climates, right?
Yeah.
Like that's something that definitely, probably New York State as well, the original indigenous that lived in New York State. Anything that lines that border where we get extreme temperatures will probably have this myth.
Yep, exactly. And each one's a bit different because of the tales that it was told by the Indian or Aboriginal tribes or indigenous people.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, right? I think if we look back to indigenous groups, some did engage in cannibalism, some did not, and that's almost like a warning them not to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and most urban legends are created with a message. And I think it's interesting that Ravenous took the approach that you felt more powerful, which you could when we look at the indigenous legends again. For those who did engage in cannibalism, the idea of eating your person, that your enemy. And I think if we look at how intense battles are, like you and I have never been in battle. Most people have never been in hand-to-hand combat where you're afraid of dying.
Right.
Know, I think that's a very different feeling, especially back then when you were fighting with very primitive tools. And you were probably exhausted by the time you ended up defeating an enemy, and so angry if you watched your friends or siblings or whoever die, that of course you're going to chow down. You know,
right.
It's almost like a victory thing. So I think it's very interesting. I think through this episode, it's really, for me, peeled back the layers of how cannibalism has been represented in literature and in pop culture. And you can kind of trace it all back to either survival, revenge, or the feeling of superiority and that you needed to survive over others. Also, you can trace it back to the vitamin deficiencies or mental health. Like, I feel like, and when I say mental health, I'm not like, oh, people are crazy and that's why they engage in these behaviors. But if you believe in the Wendigo myth, for example, and you think consuming somebody is going to give you additional powers or a better life, that may be why you do it. And I feel like we can kind of trace this all back where, society has deemed it's acceptable and it can only be done in these intense situations, or you're crazy for doing it, but there's really actually much deeper reasons to why people would engage in cannibalism at given times and different circumstances.
Yeah, and one thing I also wanted to bring up with Ravenous, that this one kind of covers the 3 different styles of cannibalism in a way that we talked about, and also the preparation style, because one was eating for survival, then there was the over-exaggerated eating for the fun of it, and then there was the high society type style that we've seen in We Are What We Are, where they're actually prepping and cooking and like making the meals that way towards the end. So it's
Absolutely.
like it's got all 3 of them in there, which I thought was kind of a fascinating, perfect way to end this.
Absolutely. And I think we got to be careful when we say for the fun of it, because it was never for fun.
No.
If people are consuming another person, it's usually because of the belief of the power that they're going to get from it, religious thoughts, or I guess we could go to the root of someone just being so mentally unbalanced that that's a choice they choose to make. But I feel like that's a very small amount of people that actually engage in that behavior.
Yeah, like that. I'm just saying for this,
right?
For Calhoun, it was kind of almost like it at least showed to be almost fun for him. The way
or empowerment.
Yeah.
Right? Or he felt like he was getting revenge on the people that had wronged him. So, yeah, so that's our discussion on cannibalism and film. And we chose those films. We know there's other films out there like The Wrong Turns and The Hills Have Eyes and other movies that touch on it.
And obviously the granddaddy of them all, Cannibal Holocaust.
Yes. And we chose not to go into them. One, I've already talked about Cannibal Holocaust on another show, so I chose not to do that movie for this. We were going to do this differently because we were planning on adding a guest. We will be doing some guest movies, guest podcasts, I guess, having guests on our podcast for a couple of episodes. So, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So we just kind of modified it. But yeah, so definitely check out Cannibal Holocaust before you check out Green Inferno. That's my one recommendation.
And if anything, just avoid Green Inferno.
Yeah, I personally, and for the people that like it, rock on. I just, the writing was just too juvenile for me. I just couldn't take it.
Exactly. And so, that's the end of our main topic. So we are going to jump into our Out of the Dark segment, which is collections and collectors. And the reason we're doing this is because good old Scream Factory, who tends to do some amazing releases, dropped a bomb on the horror community this week that pretty much, if you are in any horror movie sites and stuff like that, there was no escaping this announcement. And that is the Friday the 13th box set. Which I already own the Friday the 13th tin that has all these movies, so I'm not I wasn't as excited for it because I don't like to double dip technically. But the reaction from the horror movie collectors out there and the fans shows that this is something that has been really wanted in the community, and is and it's an awesome looking box set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks really cool.
And so we kind of want to just kind of discuss collections in general, and why do we collect, and what do we think of the collection situation. So I know you're not as much of a big collector as I am, so I'll let you kind of go first on this. What do you think? What exactly do you like to collect for when it comes to horror stuff?
So I am not someone who collects DVDs or Blu-rays. I never really have. And the reason why is because I don't usually rewatch movies tons of times. I don't see a lot of value to having that. Now, I do think it's cool when other people do, and I think it's cool when they get it signed and stuff like that. Never been a big thing for me. I wouldn't say collect, because I don't really think I collect anything of horror movie stuff. I would say that I purchase things that I find interesting in the moment. So, for example, I picked up that really cool skeleton hand necklace from Astronomicon.
Yep.
That I really like wearing, and I get a lot of compliments actually on that necklace when I wear it.
Yeah, because that necklace is badass.
It's pretty sick. I have a awesome hoodie that was gifted to me of all different horror movie characters on it, which is pretty fucking sick.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. I have my Freddy pants. I have the Jason leggings that you got me for Christmas. Thank you again, Scott.
You're welcome.
I've also got mugs and stuff like that my friends have gotten me. My one girlfriend made me an It dolls. Like, she actually sewed it and created Pennywise. I have a big live Saw jigsaw doll. I have Freddy chopsticks and stuff like that, and like little posters and coasters and buttons. But I don't go out of my way to have full box series because I feel like, for me, I'd put it on my shelf and be like, yay. And
Yeah, exactly.
I'm someone that will spend money on experiences. So I will spend money on going to the convention and seeing the stuff there. I don't collect, but I am always impressed by people's collections.
Yep. And for you, I would say, like, your collections, obviously, like with the clothing and all that stuff, your collections have more utility purpose.
Yeah, I definitely, like, I have horror pens that I use too.
Yep, you have your coffee mugs.
Oh man, they're at work. I just realized that. No wonder I haven't used my horror pens and whatever. I'm gonna have to go up to my job and get my horror pens back. But yeah, yeah, you're right. I like things that have a purpose.
Yep, things that you can use. That's at least what I've noticed from.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Where, with me and my collection, I obviously did go the route of movie collecting for many, many, many years. I would try to grab most of the limited edition stuff that Scream Factory, Vinegar Syndrome, Synapse, all the boutique Blu-ray labels would release. I would try to jump on those and grab them as soon as I could, because, like most...
But why? Like, I don't mean this to be judgy, but why?
No, I was going to say, because it was almost like, in a way, an elite status. You buy it and you're going, yes, this I can put on my shelf and be proud to display. Like, look, I got this 1 out of 2,000 limited edition thing that, like, I feel proud of that. Like, and I think I notice this more with males over females. At least this tends to be a thing that I've noticed, is males tend to gravitate to collecting a lot of stuff. And I read somewhere a long time ago that it's kind of like ingrained in our DNA from being the hunters and so we always want to go out on the hunt to find these things. Like, it's very loose connection, but I was like, oh,
no, it's not a bad connection. It makes sense.
Yeah, I was like, it makes sense, like, in a way. It's kind of just ingrained in us. But yeah, I honestly, like, looking back at it now, like with my movie collection, I don't see a purpose in it personally. Like, because, like I've talked about, I've been thinking about selling my collection because I just don't use the movies anymore and they're just taking up space. I mean, yeah, it looks cool when I can bring someone over and be like, hey, check out the collection, and people can just be like, oh, wow, that's really neat. But they really have just been sitting here collecting dust and have no use.
And I mean this with all due respect. Unless it's another horror fan, no one's going to give a fuck.
Right.
Like, they may say it's nice because they want to make you feel good.
Right.
Because they're not dicks. But no one's going to be like, wow, look at that full life-size Pinhead you have. Unless they know who Pinhead is.
Right,
like,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to care.
Yeah, because, yeah, like, now I have, because back in the day, I would buy, like, random things. I got the action figures, I got the statues, I got Funko Pops, replicas of masks, the 6-foot-tall Pinhead thing. I would get all these things just because I was like, oh, that is cool. I would get it in the moment. Like, while I'm at something, I'd be like, oh, that is so cool. I want to grab that. Now I have forced myself to get to the point where if I'm going to get something to collect and display, it is going to be of a thing that I truly love. So, it's mentioned a million times about how much I love Gremlins.
Whoa, you like Gremlins?
Right? Surprise, surprise.
Oh my gosh, it's so weird.
Right. But, I mean, you've
never
seen
heard you mention that movie.
Never. No, hate it. But if you've seen it a million times, like, or not a million times, but you've seen it, like, in my upstairs living room.
I was with you when you bought one of the most recent ones.
Yep, I'll say I have a shelving display just for Gremlin stuff. And if I'm going to collect anything now, it's going to be movie posters and stuff dedicated to Gremlins. I'm not going to go crazy and spend a ton of money on this stuff.
Yeah.
But if there's something cool and unique, yes. But I am more along the lines of you now, where it's more about I want to have the money for the experiences, like going to these conventions, just having fun, buying a couple things kind of as souvenirs.
Yep.
And for memory keepsakes.
I really like your horror basement, and I think we're lucky as podcasters because we've actually hung out in person, right? And I think that not everybody, like another podcasting friend of ours posted something this morning or last night, was like, I have really close friends that I may never meet in person.
Right.
And we're lucky that we have, and we will again. We will hang out in person again. It's just due to a global pandemic that has prevented us from doing that. But we will definitely get together again in the future. And I've been in your horror basement several times now. Like, I've been out to visit you 3 times and spent time watching horror movies down there. And the atmosphere is awesome. But I am an equal horror fan that is just into the same shit.
Yeah.
So when you and I get together, it's just like balls deep horror talk. Majority
exactly.
of our conversations have to do with podcasting, horror movies, horror adjacent stuff. Like,
and going out and having fun.
Yeah, going out and having fun and like bitching about relationships and other life things. But if we're pretty honest to what our core interests are that we share, it's that.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed of the adjacent masks that you have. I think they're really sick. I like the action figures. I did enjoy, the 2 episodes that were recorded in person.
Right.
Doing them in your horror basement was really, really cool at the time. And, you have a great setup. You definitely have a setup that if we had Adam, and I'm trying to think of the people that are local that could come. So Adam, Gary, Suzanne, Dan and Lacey, if they made the drive out to Michigan. Like, if you had people over there to hang out, people would fucking love it. Like, if we had the people from the podcasting community show up and hang out in your basement, they'd be like, fuck yeah. But generally speaking, other people that you have over, and I know other relationships that you've been in or friends, like, I'm sure they come in and they think that's cool, but no one's like, oh my god, this is like the coolest fucking thing ever.
Yeah, and
like,
then some people
spent time going through each individual shit when I came to see you the first time.
Right, and you were like taking pictures with it and stuff.
Yeah, like, but that's not most people who, unless they're really into that, aren't going to care.
Right, exactly. I think it's more just like for personal pleasure to have these things like originally.
Yeah.
And like, but yeah, if you bring someone that's like, I've had this experience a couple times where I've brought someone that's not a huge horror movie fan down here, and they're going, cool.
Or someone could be creeped out by it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, cool. Can we go back upstairs now? Because they're a bit freaked out by it.
Right, and they may be like, holy shit, this dude. What the fuck?
Right.
People are creeped out by my jigsaw doll. And we're going to post pictures of what we're talking about to the page.
Yep, I'll share a good chunk of my collection with you guys.
Yeah, and I'll share like 5 things.
Well, you'll have to take a picture of like all your different clothing style stuff too.
Yeah, I'll model.
Yeah.
I'm a model. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do, my little tush on the catwalk.
That's like going to be your smoke show.
On the catwalk.
But yeah, like, it's fun. It's fun stuff to have, and I will never fault something that other people are into. My only beef with collections, is that because people go so balls to the wall crazy, ridiculous price points can be thrown on things that make it difficult for people to afford, because everyone's got to be the first. And I just think that's a shame for other people who may, for example, want that Friday the 13th box set, but can't afford $180 US. Maybe they don't have that money right now, and they really would like it. And maybe that something like that could go for $100. In all fairness, it's fucking DVDs and a poster. And what was the other thing that came with it?
It was the lithograph poster, the awesome box that the art is on. Was it Friday the 13th Part 3 in real 3D instead of the blue and red glasses? Unrated cut of Jason Goes to Hell, which hadn't been on Blu-ray yet because it was only DVD before that, I believe. So there's like some things that, if you're like the collector that wants to finally upgrade his movie collection, because I know a lot of the reason why people are super excited about this also is the fact that Friday the 13th Blu-ray tin that came out that I have, that was only on shelves for a very short time before it went completely out of print and no more copies were made. And then the only way you could buy a copy is if you were spending $300 on eBay for it.
So I don't have a beef with all those bonuses, but are you going to tell me that the markup on that is like how much? Like, they had that footage. This is 2020. Yeah. It is not hard to release an uncut version.
Nope, I know.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
oh yeah,
the what the demand, when there's demands for things, like it's housing market, okay? I was talking to my neighbor the other day, or today, and her daughter is looking for a house, and like the fucking world's her oyster right now.
Right.
Like people are begging to sell their house. It's COVID-19. People don't even want to fucking go into houses. A year ago, houses were like, people were throwing on offers before they even saw a fucking house.
Right.
No
Exactly.
conditions, nothing. So it's demand. So my only thought is, I understand all those pros. I understand all the special stuff, and I don't fault people for wanting that. Where my concern is the markup gets so ridiculous that somebody who is truly a fan and would like that has to decide some hard choices, and they can't purchase it. And I just personally think that's a shame.
Yep.
That's
and
all.
Another issue that comes along with this is that these boutique companies know that people love to hear the word limited edition.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, the real big issue that I have is the fucking scalpers. The ones that will buy like 20 or 30 of these and then turn around and jack up the prices to double to triple the price
Even
on
more
eBay.
than what it already is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the people I really can't stand, are the ones that are doing it for the profit instead of like letting someone that actually wants that limited edition.
Screen Factory's doing it for the fucking profit too. Don't fool yourself.
I was going to say,
that price point isn't.
I was going to say, because Scream Factory and a lot of these boutique labels, that's one thing that's always been criticized, is their prices.
Yeah, like usually, and I get it, people will pay it, but like, let's be real here, right? Like, they're not.
Well, usually a single, especially when it first comes out, new Blu-ray from Scream Factory, is anywhere between $28 to $38 for one movie.
American. Let's specify American, that. Yeah. And your currency, besides the pound, is the highest in the world. So let's, also think about if you're ordering that from another country.
Right, exactly. So It's like their prices are already out of this world, astronomical. There is no reason for it. Like, they do put a lot of time and effort into cleaning these films up, making them look the best they can, because they are usually really good picture quality. But it wouldn't come at that price. And
there is a reason for it. It's capitalism, and I understand that purpose. The company wants to make money. I don't fault that. Like, I understand why it's all happening, how it's happening. I just feel bad for that person that's out there that is a really big fan of Friday the 13th. And it's like how I feel about concerts, when like concerts come to town. And like, I wanted to go see 21 Pilots. Now people probably are like, fucking 21 Pilots, but I like 21 Pilots. And I thought, I'll get concert tickets. They were like fucking $250 each for the nosebleeds. I'm like, fuck that shit. I'm not paying $250 to go see fucking 22 Pilots. Like, I have a mortgage.
Yeah, there's no reason for those prices.
I just think it's a shame. I just think that some people who really want it, this is just a soft side of me. There's no logic behind it. It's a softness of, I just feel sorry that there's people out there that really want this box set and would love to have it, and maybe they don't have anything and they can't afford it. And Scream Factory could have charged $250, not $250, probably $200, and people would have fucking bought that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I just find it a shame that it's just, the price will go up and up and up. And
and it's just because the demand always goes up and up and up with these, and especially when you put the words limited edition on there, and they know what they're doing.
Of course.
Like, they could make these. The reason it's limited edition, I think they went for at first 1,300, and then they pushed it to 7,000 when they seen like the high demand, and they had already sold out within hours. But obviously, if they went from 1,300 and were able to push it to 7,000 for a limited edition, it's obviously easy for them to make this lithograph poster.
Yes, obviously. I'm
more.
Sure in 2020, all the things that are the special features can be easily done.
Yes, exactly. And so, like, these limited editions, the only reason they're doing it is to get people interested in wanting to buy it right now while it's hot, and just to profit on it, which, you're a company, that's what you got to do.
It's capitalism. That's just what it is, right? It is what it is.
But it is kind of crazy that, it's like, there is no reason to be calling it limited edition besides just to kind of build that demand and get it higher.
And you know what? I get it. Props to them, man. And if it leads to more horror stuff being made, that's awesome. I'm glad people are consuming this stuff. I don't have any issues with people consuming and paying. I understand how the whole economic circle works. I just feel bad, as I said a million times over, like a broken record, for the people who, wanted to buy that and couldn't afford it. Like, it was blowing up on every single chat group that we were in with podcasters, every single Facebook page. And that's fine. that's fine. But like, what about the people? I just feel sorry for the people that can't, that have to make these hard choices.
Right.
And that, for some people, that stuff means a lot to them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I just think it's a shame that we can't, but that's like anything. Look at how much iPhones are. I buy Kate Spade, which is a high-end brand. Well, high-end, medium to high-end, I guess you would say. There's more high-end brands. But I wait till it's on sale. I buy last year's season of their purse and their bracelets at the outlets for like 75% off. I don't fucking care. I just like the way the purses look, and I'm going to treat myself to a nice purse that would usually be $400, and I can get it for 65 or 70. Fuck yeah, why wouldn't I? But like, that's, so yet again, I get it, but I would never go and spend $400 on a fucking Kate Spade purse, because I know I could get that same purse 6 months from now.
and there are the people that are out there that will do this for Scream Factory too, because eventually the Scream Factory titles drop in price.
Yeah.
The only thing is, like with movies especially, you got to be careful, because there's movies that you're like, yeah, I'll wait till it drops in price. Oh, Scream Factory lost the rights to it. Oh, now it's completely out of print. Oh, now the price is doubled. Fuck me.
Yeah,
it's a risk reward you got to do with these.
Absolutely. And that's like anything. You make a really good point. It is a gamble, because you could really like something and it could get sold out and never made again or whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, the Blu-ray I have of Dolls, I bought it on a whim because I was like, oh, this movie is fun. Like, I'll buy it for like $15 because I seen it on Amazon or whatever. And 2 years later, little did I know, it is now out of print and going for $60.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Scream Factory lost the rights to the title, or lost the rights to the movie, like after a certain amount of time. I'm like, well, shit. Like, if I was still like the collector that I was, I would have been like, glad I bought this when I did. Now I'm going, well, that sucks for anybody that really wanted that movie now. Like, you have to wait and see what happens there. The one thing I do want to bring up, though, with the Friday the 13th thing that I am happy to see, because the thing that makes me happy about seeing them release this is the fact that means the whole lawsuit rights issue must have finally gotten taken care of.
Yeah, it must have.
And which means a good thing for us fans of Friday the 13th films, because that means we possibly can start seeing new films going forward.
And we can keep running our podcast.
Yes. Yeah, I was saying, that we just keep our brand going.
That's right, our super special brand. But no, that's a good point, Scott. Really good point.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we can talk about on this right now.
All right, we can probably go off about collections for a long time, and if people want to share their collections in our chat and our Facebook group,
please do.
We'd absolutely love to see it. I'm a big fan of people that collect. I may not choose to collect a lot of stuff, but I would love to, I'd love to do a cribs tour, only call it like horror cribs, and like go to all the different podcasters' house. Maybe when I'm living my best life, and do tours of the ones that have the most elaborate horror setups. Be fun.
That's actually funny that you bring that you say that, because there is this Facebook page that I used to be a part of, and it was kind of like a horror grindhouse exploitation page, and it was a big community. And someone one day said, "You know what? Let's all do virtual tours of our collection." So we would record ourselves walking through and showing everything, and then sharing it to the Facebook page. And everybody started doing that, so you got to see everybody's collection in this virtual walkthrough, basically. So, hell, if y'all have a collection and you want to do a virtual walkthrough for your collection and share it on our page, I can even get started and do that with mine.
I think you should get started and do it with yours.
Yeah, so like when this episode
and I'll do it with mine. It'll be 2 minutes. Shortest video ever. Watch mine, then watch Scott's. Don't. Scott's will be like 25 minutes, and mine will be like, "This is my jigsaw doll. These are my Freddy chopsticks. This is my It doll, and these are my coasters. This is me." The end.
Well, just because it has you at the end, it'd make your video better.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not Smoke Show Crossford, okay?
No, you're the Canadian sizzling guy.
I am a mild rumble to your exploding head. That has become clear. That is something that is just the way it is. So I'm okay with that.
You need a beard, Heather. You need a beard.
I accept that I'm working with a 10, okay? And when you're working with a 10 out of 10, you just have to kind of like be the ugly duckling that hopefully one day grows into the beautiful, or like, good enough swan.
Oh my. Don't ever sell yourself short.
Thanks, Scotty. Thanks, Scotty. But yeah, I think that's a good idea, Scott. I think we should do that. Obviously, we'll do it after this episode comes out, so Scott will take 5 weeks to edit, so we'll see how that goes.
Hey, it's not my fault that life's going to be getting in the way for a little while.
He's going to be dealing with pit. So when he says he's taking care of 3 pit bulls, is actually the singer, and he's going to just be out of both.
3 clones of them.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, Mr. Worldwide! And Scott's going to be like, oh my god!
Fireball!
Imagine. Just you hanging out with 3 pit bulls all the time.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my God. It'd be, like, constant, like, Mr. Worldwide. What's this other thing that he says? Like, the 410... What is the numbers that he does? Mr. Worldwide. Fireball.
I can't remember the numbers.
Oh, my God.
All I remember is my Uncle Bob looks a lot like him.
Yeah, one time I was in a wedding party, and this limo driver looked like Pitbull. And, like, I make up nicknames for people all the time. And they always stick. And I was like, hey, you look like Pitbull. We called him Pitbull for the rest of
Nice.
the time. But yeah, when Scott's done watching all his bitches, then we'll release this episode, and then we'll do a Cribs edition, Scott and Heather. And if people want to share their house, they absolutely can. Or you don't have to be on your video if you don't want to. You could just show your stuff and talk, or show your stuff and not say anything. I don't really care. Do whatever you do. It feels good, but Scott will be like a 25-minute video with a lot of gremlins talk. So be prepared, everybody.
And
I'm really Gizmo. And this is my 1 Gizmo figure, and this is my 2nd Gizmo figure. And did you know Gremlins is the best movie ever?
And then Heather will show her Oscar for Scream 3 that she made.
Yeah, that's right. It's like handmade, like painted. And it looks like shit. It's like Screen 3 Best Picture.
It'll be a statue of Courtney Cox with that amazing haircut.
With the bangs. I'll just dress up in my Scream costume and run around the house.
Just start screaming. Ah!
Oh man, good times here at Friday Nightmares. We're just living our best lives over here.
We are total dorks, but it's fun.
You know, I'm a dork. You're a smoke show, Crawford.
I smoke dork. Wait, what?
Did you say you smoke dork?
Yeah.
What the fuck does that mean?
I don't know.
Oh my god. Hope you're not driving later.
I haven't even had anything to drink. That's scary besides iced tea.
Oh my god, you and your iced tea. Is that what he's been drinking? So you guys can't see. We're gonna I swear to God, one day we're gonna do video around the same time that date with Brandon Orlick happens. We're gonna do video because I keep talking about it like they talk about the date with Brandon Orlick on Exploding Heads. And we're gonna show Scott just drinking his big gulp. And it's like this, it's a big gulp, isn't it? Is that what you've been drinking this entire time?
Yeah, it's a 44-ounce.
Hold it up to the camera. Let's see what this is. Let's see this America.
It's a big chill.
Oh my god, how do you even get your hand around that?
Barely.
Like, it's almost like Junior. Did you hear that, Dave C? But yeah, that's a 2-hander.
Yeah, I was saying that, like, I used to drink that of pop back in the day.
Oh my god, I'm surprised you don't have diabetes.
Right? But nope, now it's just unsweetened iced tea. I have to make sure to specify unsweetened with
Because
Miss
you're like,
Heather.
I'm sweet enough.
Well, I have to specify it with you specifically because you love to say, "Oh, get your giant sweet tea." I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's not sweet tea; it's unsweetened.
You're like, I'm from Michigan, and I'm like,
I'm not
sweet
South.
tea.
I'm not a Southerner. Southerners love their sweet tea. I mean, it's
They
good,
do.
but it's too sugary for me.
They do. I remember I'll never forget when I was in the South and I asked for iced tea and they looked at me funny and they brought me fucking tea with ice in it. And I'm like, that's not what I meant. Them and their grits. They also love fucking
Oh,
grits, too.
they do love their grits.
Oh my gosh. Grits and fried chicken.
Yep.
But you know what? Who doesn't like fried chicken?
Yeah, and their soda.
Soda.
Us Northerners call it pop.
Pop. That's true. When I go to Michigan, it's like normal.
Yeah, because I mean, shit, you're connected to Michigan. We're basically Michigan and Canada together.
And Buffalo.
And
Good old
Buffalo, yes.
Buffalo and New York. But anyway, look at us. We're like, Buffalo, Michigan, connected. People have probably stopped listening by now.
Yep,
I don't know why they still are if they are. But anyway, we're going to post our horror videos. Check them out. And yeah, we'll catch you guys for our next topic, which I think I know what it is. Do you want to say what it is?
Well, I said it before, and we didn't do it, but I'll say it again, because I think the next episode we will do the shark movies.
Yeah, and we will talk about some pretty Oscar-worthy shark films.
Oh
Just you
boy,
guys wait.
will we!
We got some bad boys, and we'll be having some guest series as well. We have a couple of guests lined up that we're going to be bringing on. We feel like we're good enough now for these guests. We didn't want to.
Because we had to. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, we just kind of had to figure out a way that we could change our format to add the guests.
I just meant that didn't think we were good enough for guests. But
well,
yeah,
I mean, we
change
also
our
weren't...
format. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, obviously we needed to get used to everything ourselves for a while before we brought in a guest and get comfortable with what we're doing.
We're still not comfortable. We still don't know what we're doing, but we figured we should bring another person into this threesome to just.
We're good now at not knowing what we're doing.
We're so good.
We're great at not knowing how to do what we're doing.
So good, yeah. Anyway.
I'm good. So good, it's bad.
Just like you and your pit bull. Your 3 pit bulls. Mr. Worldwide! Fireball! Anyway, why don't you close this bad boy out, Scott?
All right. So if you're not tired of us now, you will be later on. But I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyways.
Well, if you listen to It's Not Horror, okay, you can hear more of Scott and I and our antics.
Oh, boy.
Or you cannot.
Yes, you could listen to that and question many things, especially about me.
But it's a fun show. We do talk about different, and it's a show that sometimes Scott and I remember to bring up on this podcast, sometimes that we don't. But it's a fun show where we basically watch a cheesy 80s action movie, and we watch all varieties because we're on there with 3 other people, and we all take turns choosing movies. It's a lot of fun. It's on the Horrorphilia Network, so if you like commentaries and you want to hear us talk about some cheesy 80s action films, please check it out. It's with Nudie from NFW, Android Bias from Android Vision, as well as, oh my goodness, I forgot his podcast.
Mr.
And I'm going to be a guest on Android's podcast.
I think it was the podcast, the Cemetery Gates podcast.
Cemetery Gates podcast, yes, and I'm going to be guesting on that actually in a couple of weeks, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, I'm special. And then Mr. Venom, which is he's on every podcast, but probably No More Room in Hell, Fresh Cuts, and In the Mic of Madness with the lovely Rebecca Reinhart is probably where you can mostly find him at this point.
And we've also had, for the last couple of episodes, Mr. Gary Hill himself from Cinema Beef, 2 Drink Minimum.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, good time. So check us out there if you haven't had enough of this awesome ending of our episode that we dragged out way longer than necessary. But
we're like a Stephen King novel. We get everything going really well, and then we just don't know how to end it.
Yeah, we're like the ending of Pet Sematary, the remake. Yeah. Everyone's looking at each other by the end of it, like, what did we just listen to?
We're just gonna go in a weird direction. It was aliens.
Anyway, I'll let Scott close us out finally again. But please, if you are comfortable after Scott and I upload our horror videos of our collection, please feel free to do the same.
Yes, I would love to see it. But thank you everyone for listening to us. Making it to episode 13. We love the feedback that we've been getting and the fun nicknames that people have been coming up with for us and all the stuff that, we are glad that people are responding to the show the way they are. So yeah, until next time, unpleasant dreams.
Pitbull. Fireball.